If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description. Additionally, if you would like to request novels and access my Google Drive where I have 200 plus audiobooks, then you can join my Patreon. Link is also provided in the description.
Chapter 21, The Quickest Protagonist to Die. Try to guess who I am. When this question was asked, Ishigami's mind immediately went to one of his acquaintances who had a softness similar to a water pillow or meat bun on their chest. However, the only person that came to his mind was one. Yet, when he smelled this gentle scent, Ishigami wondered whether she had changed her perfume. Fujiwara-senpai. Hey? Fujiwara-senpai? You mean Fujiwara Chika? Are you close to her? Ah, he made a wrong guess, but it couldn't be helped since the only girl he knew who had such an incredible chest and would do something so silly like that was Chika. Still, he quickly held the hands that closed his eyes, pulling them away, then turned his head. Who? How cruel! The young woman cried with Ishigami's confused expression. Did you forget about me? We just met yesterday, right? You also helped me. Sorry, what's your name again? Ishigami looked at the pink-haired young woman with a voluptuous body, pink-haired, which she neatly combed into a 7:3 ratio, and a ponytail, which she tied with a ribbon. Frankly, with how beautiful she was, Ishigami should remember her, but many things happened last night, and he didn't remember that they had introduced each other. Now that you mention it. The young woman suddenly realized something and said, we haven't introduced ourselves. Then she smiled at Ishigami and introduced herself. My name is Tsubame Koyasu. I am in my 3rd year, so call me senpai, okay? She lightly tapped Ishigami's nose as if he were a naughty junior. Yes, senpai. While Ishigami said so, he quickly stopped Tsubame's hand, which wanted to touch him again as her sweet scent was just too much for a virgin and pubescent boy like him. This is inappropriate, he thought. While he loved it, this couldn't continue since he wasn't a harem comedy protagonist who could remain limp all the time. But I will appreciate it if you don't touch me too much, senpai. Ishigami sounded helpless, but this aroused her Tsubame's interest to tease him more. Geez, are you embarrassed? Oh, you haven't introduced yourself. Don't you know my name? I know you, but it won't be fair if you don't introduce yourself, right? When Tsubame asked so, she looked at him with a cute pout. Not only was her personality friendly, outgoing, and easy to get close to anyone, but her beautiful face and the softness of her body could also simply melt the hearts of any man. Including him, but Ishigami was strong. My name is Ishigami Yu. Nice to meet you, Koyasu-senpai. Nice to meet you, Ishigami-kun. As Ishigami greeted her like a good boy, Tsubame wanted to pat his head again. Senpai, while I respect you, I hope you don't touch me much. Ishigami quickly held Tsubame's hands since those hands tried to touch him again. Frankly, he felt a bit jealous of a woman who could get so touchy with others, yet if a man got touchy, everyone would think of him as sexual harassment. Still, while he didn't hate this touch, she was a little close, and he was afraid that he couldn't hold on since he could feel the blood on his body slowly moving to his lower body. This can't continue. What's wrong? Are you embarrassed? When Tsubame asked so, she looked at her hands, which were held by him firmly. He didn't show her mercy and held her tightly, which made her body feel strange since usually others were gentle with her. I am afraid that others will misunderstand. Others? Who? As if a cue of someone would come out, someone suddenly called his name. You. The two turned and then saw Onodera was there, staring at the two with a frown. Tsubame-senpai. Ah, Rei-chan. Tsubame became awkward when Onodera saw her with Ishigami, and somehow, she became slightly panicked. But why should she panic? The two didn't date each other, right? So, there shouldn't be any misunderstandings, but somehow, she felt that she had done something wrong. But then, she noticed a strangeness at what Onodera called Ishigami. You. As Tsubame muttered softly, Onodera tried to smile and asked, what are you two doing? Koyasu-senpai is trying to molest me. What? 2x. Ishigami-kun. Tsubame looked at Ishigami with resentment and blushed, but when she thought about how touchy she was toward him, clinging to his firm and strong body, she couldn't refute it and panicked. Only Onodera started to look at Tsubame with a resentful gaze. She had helped her yesterday, but why the heck did this senior of her try to touch her crush? Wait, crush? Somehow, Onodera started to realize something. I was joking. She was just about to fall before, so I caught her. Really? Onodera looked at Tsubame with surprise and worry. Yes. While Tsubame felt a bit guilty, she nodded since being mistaken to fall was much better than being mistaken to molest this bad guy. Still watching his calm face as if he did nothing wrong, Tsubame pouted. Then, senpai, we will go to the class first. Don't fall again, okay? See you, senpai. Ishigami quickly left since he could feel many gazes on him, and Onodera quickly followed him. Yes. Tsubame blushed, feeling slightly shy by his teasing, but at the same time, she also felt at a loss since she knew that she hadn't thanked him for what Ishigami did yesterday. However, when she thought about what he had done and said to her before, she pouted and thought that she needed to show her prestige as a senior or else this bad guy would bully her. Was Tsubame senpai's hands nice to hold? When the two walked to the class, Onodera couldn't help but ask this question in a resentful tone, even if she didn't realize it. Ishigami stopped, then looked at Onodera, causing her to be stunned, before. Give me your hands. While Onodera was confused, she gave her 2 hands obediently, but she was surprised when she saw him holding her hands firmly so suddenly. You. She was embarrassed by his sudden action, but she didn't hate it, she thought. Yours feel better. As Ishigami said so, he let go of her smooth yet slightly sweaty hands and walked to the class again. Frankly, Onodera's hands were more slender, but it didn't mean that they weren't good, and their hands had their own advantages, which made him wonder how it felt when those hands were used for something else. It was just his EQ was high, and he knew no matter who was better, at this moment, he had to say Onodera's hands were the best. Watching how he let her hands go so easily, as if he threw them away, Onodera snorted, thinking that this guy was as tsundere as ever. Even though you want to hold my hand. Onodera pouted, but frankly, if Ishigami asked her, then, she might not mind him holding her hand. Yet, this guy ignored her and pretended that he hadn't noticed anything. Still, Ishigami couldn't be blamed since he knew that a trial was awaiting him, especially when he saw the text on his smartphone. Yes, this text might be unreasonable, yet in the power of money, what could he do? If he wasn't careful, he was afraid that he would become a fish pellet in Tokyo Bay, even though he was so young and full of potential like this. He also hadn't used his 19 centimeters. While there might be a chance of him being traveled and revived by another character, it was just, who wanted to die, right? So, while it was humiliating, he could only go and think of many revenge novels, hoping that they could be used in the future. Don't bully the poor and the weak. And it wasn't too late for the gentleman to take his revenge within 10 years. Ishigami, do you want to have lunch together? Sorry, maybe next time, I need to go to the student council. Okay, do your best. When the break started, many invited him to have lunch together, and Ishigami knew that their relationship had become closer after that karaoke yesterday. Still, while he would maintain a relationship with them, it was only a bare minimum since he was too lazy to get close to those who mocked him before unless they treated him because money was innocent. Still taking a deep breath, Ishigami walked away from the class, walking toward the empty corridor that led him into an empty room on the corner where he saw a beautiful girl with Ikuru-like attire, long blonde hair, which she tied up on the side with a scrunchie, and long smooth, white thighs that were shown through her short skirt, stood as if she was in charge of a lookout, so no one would know what her master did to a poor man like him. Hayasaka-senpai. Ishigami-kun. Hayasaka nodded calmly without many expressions on her face, like ice, which was a stark contrast with the lively attire that she usually showed at school. Still, Ishigami didn't care about this reaction and continued to talk with her. Have you eaten lunch yet? Only when Hayasaka wanted to answer his question. Ishigami, come here. While Hayasaka rolled her eyes helplessly, Ishigami took a deep breath and stepped forward before a powerful grip grabbed his collars and pulled him into the empty room. I am dead. Chapter 22, thus, Ishigami closes his eyes. Bang! As Ishigami was pushed into a wall, he saw Kaguya, who was in front of him, casually doing a cape-down action. Kaguya slapped the wall, then looked at Ishigami, who was taller than her, with a calm expression. Could you tell me why you ignored my call last night, or do you want to move? If you move, where do you want to go? Myanmar? Cambodia? Laos? Or if you want, I can also send you to Siberia. Oh, Right, if you don't want the land, I can also send you to the sea. I fell asleep. Also, I don't want to move. I am satisfied to live in this country. Moreover, if I move far away, I can't meet a lovely and cute senior like you, right? Ishigami felt powerless. Even if he had a system, he had just come to this world in 3 days. Frankly, if this girl wasn't the one that Shirogane fell in love with, Ishigami would make Kaguya fall for him, then become a son-in-law before getting revenge by robbing all the wealth of the Shinomiya family. You are a lucky girl. Ishigami thought viciously while trying to maintain his gentle smile. So, did you use your sweet mouth to go on a date with Fujiwara-san? Oh, tell me, Ishigami-kun, are you playing with her? Kaguya was no longer fooled by him. While she wasn't sure why this cute junior of his changed, she knew well that this guy was capable of seducing anyone if he wished to, especially since she knew that Ishigami had been close with many girls. If it was someone else, she didn't care, but the one he seduced was Chika, her only friend. If he hurt her, then... Well, Kaguya didn't intend to do anything, but she wished for him to be a good junior instead of a naughty one and play with the heart of the woman. Still, when Kaguya asked so, Hayasaka, who was outside, pressed her ear to the door to eavesdrop on their conversation. Ishigami blinked his eyes, looked at Kaguya, who was staring at him blankly, and then lowered his head slightly. If it was Chika or Tsubame, he felt that he should be able to see a large crevice from the gap of the collars on their uniform, but unfortunately, it was Kaguya, so he knew that he could see nothing. While he knew that it was a bit of a perverted move, this was a small revenge of his toward Kaguya since this girl had threatened him. Still, the girl's soft body pressed against his unintentionally, and her soft scent invaded his olfactory sense, making his untrained mind and body dizzy. Ishigami. Kaguya felt unsatisfied when Ishigami didn't answer her question. Let me calm down for a while since I didn't expect that you would threaten me with this, senpai. Sorry about that. Watching his pitiful expression, Kaguya couldn't help but apologize, but then she quickly said, but how did you really go on a date with Fujiwara-san? How did you know that we would go on a date? Ishigami asked in confusion. Fujiwara-san called me last night and told me that you two were going on a date this weekend. While Kaguya said so, she had to say Ishigami was sleek for making a move on Chika so quickly. If she had called you, then you should know everything, right? But I want to hear it from your mouth. Sorry, no. Ishigami shook his head and said, I think it is inappropriate of me to talk about our matter to you, senpai. If Fujiwara-senpai tells you by herself, then I won't say anything, but I want you to respect Fujiwara-senpai since even if you are the heir of the Shinomiya family, our lives aren't yours, so there is no need for us to tell you everything about us. You sure have the guts to say something like that to me, Ishigami-kun. Kaguya's eyes were like a viper, ready to bite her prey with her venom. What kind of upbringing could make a girl turn like this? Ishigami felt a bit sorry for Kaguya, but even if he was forced to move to another country, he wouldn't back down since this was a matter of principle, and if he backed down, then he wouldn't be a man. If it's about myself, then you can ask as much as you want since you have helped me, senpai, and I don't mind telling you, but if it's Fujiwara-senpai, it is a different matter. Hearing his words and his courageous expression, Kaguya looked at Ishigami with a complicated gaze and asked, do you like Fujiwara-san? No. While he had to admit Chika was cute and her body was lewd, Ishigami knew his priority. Instead of the E cup that was far away, wasn't it better to go after the B cup that was close by his side? This was human nature, and if he could get something close, why should he move so far away? Then, why did you two go on a date? To be honest, I am not even sure myself, but what did Fujiwara-senpai tell you? She told me that you deceived her so he could take her on a date. Unlike Ishigami, Shinomiya didn't have a reserve to tell Fujiwara's secret. Ishigami was so shocked that he couldn't say anything. Please give me back all of my resolutions to fight an evil capitalist. He wanted to cry, feeling sad as he was being betrayed. As expected, he couldn't believe in politicians. They might give a sweet promise, saying that they would fight with him. Unfortunately, the moment their position was threatened, they would abandon him directly, which made him helpless. As a daughter of a political family, it would have been impossible if Chika didn't have that cunningness and slick nature, but then, Ishigami wanted to curse that bitch since it was all due to her that he was in this situation. Watching his hurt and even sad expression as if being betrayed, whether it was Kaguya or Hayasaka, they couldn't help but feel sorry, thinking that Chika was as mischievous as ever. So, then, tell me how you two decide to take a date from the beginning. Unlike Chika's mouth, Kaguya believed more in Ishigami's mouth. Still, if Chika knew Kaguya's thoughts, she would cry like a child. Only. Ishigami thought for a while, then shook his head. No, I won't. Why? Do you think she is worthy of protection? Kaguya wondered whether it was worthy of Ishigami to be stubborn for Chika. Just ask her, if she won't tell you, then I won't say anything since I still want to respect her even if she is like that. Ishigami felt that it was normal for girls to have a chat about their love life, especially when Kaguya and Chika were close friends. What? No, it's just I have never thought that you have this side. Ishigami was stunned when he saw Kaguya become so close to him, and from this close distance, he could feel her warm breath, gentle scent, soft womanly body, and thigh that rubbed against his thigh accidentally. She might not be his type, but there was no doubt she was a beautiful girl. Yet, this troubled him, especially when he was just a young man in puberty, and he had been holding back for so long as he didn't have a hobby to rub himself. However, the desire of a young man was impossible to stop, and it was like a volcanic eruption that would bring destruction to everyone, and because of that, he knew that he had to stop it. Senpai, can you keep your distance for a bit? Watching his shy and noticeable blush, Kaguya decided to tease him instead of moving away, moving even closer with a sweet smile. What's wrong? Are you shy? No, it's just. The blood on his lower body was impossible to stop, and the natural reaction that came from having a beautiful girl so close to him happened. Knowing he was about to die, thus, Ishigami closed his eyes. Chapter 23, You don't want everyone to know, right? Ishigami wished to have a small size. While he knew that he might be disdained to have such a wish, at this moment, he wished to have such a small size so he wouldn't be killed, yet he knew that it was impossible since his size was about above average. However, instead of being the average person in this country, it was the average Ecuadorian man. So, the moment it became hardened, it was impossible to hide. At this moment, Ishigami couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy towards the harem protagonist, who possessed the remarkable ability to remain composed in the face of numerous alluring heroines. Yuaki Rito, I respect you. If Ishigami were in Yuaki Rito's place, he was afraid he had already become a beast. Nevertheless, he knew that he couldn't escape from reality, and he knew that even if he tried to think about many, his penis was at its utmost erection and pressed itself against Kaguya's belly. If he wasn't a virgin, then this wouldn't happen, but he wasn't, after all, and he also didn't intend to rub himself, so it might cause trouble to his lower body. As Ishigami was given a second chance, even if he became a NEET in the future, he wanted to have a healthy body free from diseases, yet he never expected that this healthy body would put him in danger. Yet, the reaction that he received was something that he had never thought of. What is this? Could you let me know what you hid here? Isn't this too big? How can it fit there? As Ishigami thought that he would die, he felt a shiver when he felt a soft touch, holding and stroking his lower body with doubt and curiosity. Maybe it was because Kaguya was born from the legend of Kaguya, the rabbit woman of the moon, so when she saw a 19 cm carrot hidden behind his pants, she couldn't stop her curiosity and marveled at how big it was. Senpai, stop it. What's wrong? What did you hide here? Yet, Kaguya didn't intend to stop and even asked him suspiciously, wondering what Ishigami hid inside. Was it a weapon? If so, then why was it only hard and a little hot? At the same time, Kaguya also felt her body felt strange, slightly hot, yet she didn't hate this feeling and kept rubbing this giant thing with her small, soft hands. Kaguya-sama. Stop. Ah, this should be a normal reaction. Watching Hayasaka's reaction, who suddenly barged into the empty classroom, Ishigami was glad that he was normal and Kaguya was the weird one. What's wrong? Yet Kaguya was still clueless, wondering what was wrong with the two. While Kaguya was dumb, Hayasaka understood everything, but when she saw the giant carrot within Ishigami's lower body, she could only stay still and remain dumbfounded before thinking that Ishigami was going to die. Yet, when Hayasaka thought that everything was going to be over, she had never thought Kaguya's reaction would be so unbelievable. Stop! Don't touch that anymore, Kaguya-sama. Why? Hayasaka glanced at Ishigami, causing him to push Kaguya's hands away since this girl was too outrageous. What kind of woman would touch someone else's erection like that? Kaguya might be his boss, and he owed her a lot of things, but how could she betray his trust and taint his innocence? I can't marry anymore. Ishigami felt his heart heavy and was also at a loss about what to do, but as he remained in sadness, Hayasaka used this chance to whisper at Kaguya, explaining what her master had touched while glancing at this naughty junior, who crouched down as if in despair, feeling apologetic and sorry for him. After all, her master was too slutty. Kaguya is a nymphomaniac. Whether it was Ishigami or Hayasaka, they wondered what to do since Kaguya's power was too strong, so they were helpless toward her. Hey! That's a penis. Isn't that too big? Naturally, Kaguya understood the difference between a man and a woman, yet why was it so big? When she held it in her hands before, she felt that it was like a large carrot, and at the same realizing what she had done, she felt her body scorching. She clearly felt an unfamiliar sensation on her body that made her body strangely hot yet comfortable. Touching her cheek and trying to calm herself, she couldn't help but recall their interaction, and at the same time, she realized she used this gesture by using the hand that was touching his. Wait. Don't be so loud. What if someone hears us? Still, with Kaguya's loud voice, Hayasaka became even more panicked, then looked outside the empty class before she sighed in relief as no one was around or even heard what they did. Yet, this was normal since before they called Ishigami, they had surveyed many rooms within this school and chose the one that hardly entered or even walked to, so whatever happened within this room would remain a secret. Fortunately, they had made their preparations, otherwise, a scandal would happen, and some people might become fish pellets in Tokyo Bay. As for the blackmail plot in the hentai manga? Ha ha ha, if someone had dared blackmail Kaguya, it would have been impossible for them to see the sun the next day. Then, was he going to meet the same fate? Ishigami thought that he was ready for death, yet how could his death be such a joke? He hadn't achieved anything, and all he did was just flirt with a few girls and sing karaoke. Somehow, he felt that he wasn't crazy enough, and he felt that he should let loose all the desires within him. Yet, at the same time, when he saw his system, he was dumbfounded. Is that okay? Still, watching Ishigami's devastated expression, Kaguya also felt mixed. She was angry, yet she also felt sorry, especially when she knew what she had done was just too much. However, if I didn't touch it. If she hadn't touched it, it would have been impossible for her to feel this feeling, and she would have just remained focused on a certain someone, wishing to get his heart, but now? I am sorry, Ishigami. I didn't know that was yours. As Kaguya apologized, her face was so red that smoke might emit from her head. It's my fault, too. I am sorry for that reaction, senpai. Regardless, it was his fault that Ishigami couldn't stop his body. His mouth might say otherwise, but when Kaguya was so close to him, his body became so hot that it reacted in a way that he didn't wish to. Well, yes, you are at fault, Ishigami-kun. Ishigami thought that Kaguya would also admit her mistake, and he would do the same. Then, the two of them would apologize, solving the misunderstanding between them before they returned to their previous relationship. Didn't you say before that our relationship will be a pure relationship between a senior and a junior? Yet, why did it get so hard? Kaguya looked at Ishigami coldly, and her red pupils appeared without emotion, yet strangely enough, they gave his body a strange shudder. Still, Ishigami knew that he couldn't back down, otherwise, he was afraid that his situation would get worse. I have reminded you before. No excuse. Her voice was calm, her face was blank, and it was impossible to guess what was inside her mind. I have trusted you, but you look at me with such perverted eyes and even got hard. Do you want to do that with me, hey? Senpai, Watching his defense start to crumble, Kaguya smiled victoriously and said, you don't want everyone to know what was happening, right? Ishigami and Hayasaka. Ishigami felt so powerless at that moment, so he apologized. I am sorry. Compared to other students, who didn't know their height and thought they could do anything, Ishigami knew well that even with the system's help, he didn't think he could reach the height of the Shinomiya group in the future. Even if he could, he might have been killed before he reached that stage, and this definitely wasn't a joke since, with the connection, strength and financial ability of this group, there was hardly anything that Kaguya couldn't do in this country. It was humiliating, but some people in life decided to bear the humiliation so they could stay alive, gritting their teeth to live day by day. Yet, he had never thought that he would encounter this situation in his life. That's not enough. What do you want, senpai. Show me. With a calm expression, Kaguya said those words. Show what? Show me what is hidden under your pants now. Chapter 24, Precious Jr. The blackmail plot usually appeared in many hentai stories, and it was also the most common way for someone to get their hands on sleeping with others. It was despicable, but the world wasn't all rainbow, so anything could happen, yet Ishigami had never thought that something like this would happen to him. His innocence and virginity that he protected for his future wife would disappear just like this, which made him cry at the cruelty of the world. Why did it happen to him? Yet, when he considered Kaguya's power, he knew he could only succumb to her advance. As he was ready to show his last symbolic struggle to fight the power of capitalism, ready to let her ravage his body, Ishigami suddenly recalled the face of a certain someone, which made him know that no matter what was happening, he knew that he had to end this relationship or else he would hurt that person. Ishigami knew well that he couldn't be said to be a good guy, especially when he often played dumb, showing a fake face to gain the goodness of others, but then, there was something that he could do and couldn't do, especially toward someone who had given him a lot. More importantly, if he did it with Kaguya, then it was impossible for him to do it with everyone else. Whether it was Onodera, Aino, Tsubame, Hayasaka, or many others were still waiting for him. His body couldn't be owned by a single person. Jokes aside, no matter what, he knew he couldn't let this continue. Yet, as he made up his mind, Hayasaka was dumbfounded by the request that came from Kaguya's mouth. This is Kaguya. The cold and stone-faced girl who faced everything mercilessly. However, all of a sudden, this girl suddenly made a request to her junior to show his penis. Hayasaka wondered whether she was dreaming, but as she pinched her arm, and it hurt, she knew that it was a reality and she was dreaming. I'm not getting paid enough for all of this. Her monthly salary was 500,000 yen, and while it was a good amount of money, she felt it wasn't enough for her to face all of this. Yet, subconsciously, she glanced at Ishigami's lower body, which had turned limp and flat as if the previous bulge was just an illusion. This was amazing, she thought, and wondered how he could hide something so huge within his pants. If she didn't have common sense like Kaguya, she would also be suspicious of what was hidden, but as she knew common sense, she also knew how exceptional his thing was. While Hayasaka had to admit that she was curious about his penis, she knew what she should and shouldn't do, but she was just a servant of the Shinomiya family, and she couldn't fight Kaguya's desire, so all she could do was to stand aside her mistress, and let her satisfy her curiosity. Yet, while Hayasaka made many excuses, Kaguya's wish was simple, and that was to see Ishigami's penis. That's it. The feeling of his hardened penis on her hand was still vivid, and she wanted to see it with her own eyes, the beast that was hiding under his thin body. At that moment, she was like a bad guy who got the weakness of a married woman and used that weakness to unleash her lust toward Ishigami. Currently, she is just a perverted girl. Yet, it hurts. Kaguya covered her forehead in pain as she didn't expect Ishigami to flick her forehead harshly. What are you doing? Her expression was cold, and she was in tears, staring at him in resentment, but... Let's not do something we will both regret, Shinomiya-senpai. At that moment, it was as if cold water was poured on the top of their heads. Whether it was Kaguya or Hayasaka, they knew how wrong their action was, and they couldn't face him, who showed a sincere expression, hoping that they shouldn't continue to do whatever would happen. Ishigami knew that he was hypocritical to reject Kaguya, since he knew that if she made a move on him, he definitely wouldn't reject her and just go all the way, but then, he knew that if he did this, he would hurt Shirogane. In this world, whether it was Aino, Kobachi, his teacher, or even Shirogana's mother, they probably were all fine, and he didn't mind continuing to go on with them, but Kaguya definitely wasn't one of them. While he knew that his appearance might cause their love not to be as strong as before or something else might happen to them in the future, no matter what, he wished Shirogane and Kaguya to be together. He knew that this wish of his was selfish since he couldn't force his feelings to wish them to fall for each other. Feelings were the most complicated part of a human, and his wish was meaningless if this didn't bring them happiness. However, Ishigami had just helped Shirogane before, helping him on his date with Kaguya, so if he had just gone on with Kaguya right now, was he even a human being? If he dared to do so, he was afraid that he was even lower than a dog, since even a dog knew how to repay a human. Yet, he betrayed someone who helped him from his most pathetic state. So, at this moment, he had to stop himself and couldn't allow himself to be controlled by lust. Hearing his words, after she lowered her head, Kaguya looked at Ishigami, who showed his wish to make everything correct. Yet. Hayasaka, leave the two of us here. Yes. While hesitating, Hayasaka nodded, leaving the two alone inside the class. Would Kaguya be in danger? Hayasaka didn't think so since she felt that it would be Ishigami who would be in danger with Kaguya by his side. Still, with Hayasaka left, the two could face each other and say what was within their minds. Sorry for before. I am not sure what is happening to me. No, you are right. It was all my fault. If I could hold my desire toward you, then nothing like this would happen. Kaguya smiled and asked, so you think I am charming, right? I do. Ishigami nodded and said, if you aren't in love with someone, I might chase you. Kaguya chuckled and said, you sure know how to joke. She knew well that Ishigami didn't have an interest in her, yet she knew well that it might be her first time to feel something like this with someone. Yes, whether it was Chika or Shirogane, they were special for her. Chika was her first friend, and Shirogane was someone who made her realize that there was such a gentle person in this world who did something without any hidden intentions, making her realize that such a someone existed in this world. However, Ishigami was different. Unlike the two, their interaction might only be 3 days, yet for Kaguya, their exchange changed her deeply as she realized that such someone existed. Unlike the two, Ishigami had never thought of her better than him and always treated her the same as others. This part of him was the one that attracted her since she knew well that, being born as the heiress of the Shinomiya family, it was impossible for her to be treated like others, whether someone would deceive her so they could gain their goodwill or look at her as if she were a being from heaven, so they would try to please her with various methods. Either way, she hated such a look, and she just wished to be seen normally. Yet, Ishigami never looked at her in such a way, and he made her laugh, causing her world to be vibrant. While she wasn't sure whether what she felt toward him was love or not, she could tell it would be fun to be with him, yet if the price of them being together was the pain of someone she loved, would she do it? Whether it was for her or him, that person was someone important, and neither of them wanted to hurt him. Or at least Ishigami didn't want them to hurt this person, so Kaguya took a deep breath and called his name softly, Ishigami. What's wrong, senpai? Watching his gentle expression, Kaguya shook her head and said, you are right. Let's end this, but before that, can I hug you? Ishigami only opened his arms so wide, ready to welcome Kaguya anytime. Come. I think that as a man, you should take the initiative to hug me here. Kaguya was embarrassed when she was told to hug him, and she was also speechless by this guy's action. You are the one who asked anyway. Geez, you are always. Regardless, Kaguya hugged him softly, pressing her face slowly against his chest, smelling his gentle scent as she let out a helpless sigh. If it was him, how long would they be like this? Yet, being in his arms felt nice, she thought. Are you going to get hard? When Kaguya felt his arms on her slender waist, she couldn't help but ask mockingly. If you don't say anything, then I might. Pervert. Could someone who wanted to see my little brother say that? But that thing is really huge. Can we stop talking about that? Phew phew phew. Kaguya leaned on him and said, don't play with a woman's heart. I am not. You did. Then, what should I do? Should I get fat? No, you should treasure your health. Kaguya felt helpless, then sighed, wondering if she was such an easy woman who would fall for anyone who treated her normally like others, yet no matter what, she was going to remember this feeling and treasured everything, even if it was only for a moment. 3 days. Even if their beginning was full of teasing and fighting, she enjoyed their time with him, but more than that, it was dangerous. More than this, they would hurt someone important to them. Don't forget to study. I will study hard. Don't return like before. I won't let you down. Be happy. You too. The two hugged each other tightly for minutes before she let him go. I will go back. I will go back later. Yeah, calm that down first since it has been poking me for a while. Ishigami. As Kaguya laughed, she left and closed the door, leaving him alone before Ishigami crouched down, feeling helpless and wondering why the feeling was so difficult. Still, in his system, he felt strange since he didn't expect he would get a reward. Congratulations, you have received Eyes of Wealth. It seemed he could become better than the Shinomiya family. Regardless, he lowered his head and looked at the raging erection in his pants. Letting out a helpless sigh, he wondered what he should do with this. Kaguya-sama. Oh. Kaguya, who walked away from the class, looked at Haseaka, who gave her a handkerchief and realized her eyes were wet. "Thanks, Hayasaka." Wiping her eyes, she took a deep breath, trying to calm herself before returning to her usual state. "No problem." Haseaka never said anything, asking what was happening between the two, but there was nothing lewd about it. "I wonder if I fell in love with him." "Kaguya-sama." Kaguya shook her head and didn't talk anymore, but regardless of how they would be, she knew Ishigami would be her precious junior. Chapter 25, Silly Girls. After school, everyone did their own things, whether they went on a club activity, studied, went home, or did many other things, and this also included the members of the student council. At this moment, Shirogane and Kaguya did their own jobs in the office as usual. As for Ishigami? Well, he wasn't there, but it didn't matter since he could do his job remotely. Still, at this moment, one member of the student council was nervous, like a deer that was about to be captured by a tiger. Chika, who came to the student council, opened the door lightly, peeking inside for a while and looking around, but she was unable to find someone she wished to see. "What's wrong, Fujiwara?" Shirogane noticed Chika, who acted like a criminal with confusion. "And nothing." Chika quickly shook her head in panic. "If you are looking for Ishigami, he isn't here," Kaguya said calmly. "Ah, is that so?" Chika sighed in relief before pouting, thinking that Ishigami was such a coward who didn't dare to face her. Did he not dare face her after he deceived her innocent heart? No, he isn't like that. Chika knew well that Ishigami wasn't such a mean guy, but then where was he? While she was a bit embarrassed, she took her smartphone and decided to send him a text. However, "Why did you look for Ishigami?" Yet, Chika forgot her confusion and nervousness, which made Shirogane curious about what was happening. Usually, Chika could handle this situation well, using various tricks and cheats to fool Shirogane, but when she thought that she would go on a date with Ishigami this Sunday, her cute face flushed red shyly. While she wasn't sure what to do, as expected, her best friend, Kaguya, came in to help her. "Kaguya-san. Isn't it the usual? She might prank Ishigami, so she is afraid he will get angry at her," Kaguya said in a relaxed manner. "Kaguya-san." Chika felt sad that Kaguya thought that she was such a troublemaker. "You shouldn't make trouble for your junior, Fujiwara." Still, Shirogane couldn't let go of Chika, especially when he heard that she had caused trouble for Ishigami. "As his senior, you should show an example instead of troubling him, Fujiwara." Kaguya chuckled as she looked away, and Chika looked at Shirogane in resentment. "What's wrong? Why are you looking at me like that?" While Shirogane was confused, no one explained to him, and Chika could only swallow her anger, letting him think that she had caused trouble for Ishigami even though it was Ishigami who had tarnished her innocent and perfect heroine status in the hearts of everyone. At the same time, Chika looked at Kaguya, who smiled softly at her, then sighed helplessly since she knew well that if it wasn't because she was embarrassed since it would be her first time going on a date with a man, would she be misunderstood like this? Still sitting on the comfortable sofa, Chika looked at her smartphone, ready to ask Ishigami where he was, but then, she hesitated since it felt like she was a sticky and annoying girlfriend who couldn't get away from her boyfriend. However, in the end, after a moment of struggle, she sent him a chat. "Chika, where are you?" Now, that is a good question. Where was he? What was he doing? After what happened in that empty classroom with Kaguya, what did he do now? Well, unexpectedly, he was in the gym. Yup, the gym where he registered previously. He trained his physical ability by swimming at this moment. Swimming level 1, 42/100. At this moment, he realized his weakness. Being a virgin and puberty, all of his thoughts were about a woman. While he wanted to calm himself, it was impossible, considering how healthy his body currently was. Physical level 1, 54/100. It was impossible to use hands, video, or even books since he didn't want to, so at this moment, he decided to consume his excess energy by working out, and when he was exhausted, he would go on to study. Currently, he is a perpetual machine whose purpose is to study and work out. When he was full of energy, he would work out, and when he was exhausted, he would study. Then, by repeating those actions, he would reach the peak. Still, as a young man and a virgin, he knew that a gym was a dangerous place, especially when there were many married women in tight yoga outfits that perfectly showed the shape of their womanly bodies that were aching and released sensual pheromones as their husbands often left them from working. Fortunately, he focused on improving himself, and at the same time, the reward he had gained from the system occupied his mind. Eyes of wealth. Ishigami thought that his reward could only be a talent, something that needed to be worked on so it could shine. If he had made an example, it would have been like Sasuke, who needed to work hard to awaken Sharingan even though he was part of the Uchiha family. Even though he had Sharingan, if he didn't work hard enough, it was impossible for him to awaken it. Ishigami thought that the reward system worked that way, but it seemed he underestimated it. The system probably understood how powerful Kaguya was, so it gave him the eyes of wealth, the eyes that helped him see the path to wealth. What was the use of it? Frankly, he wasn't sure yet, but somehow, along the way, he found a few 1,000 yen and 10,000 yen money fell onto the street. However, this wasn't due to luck, but rather, it was like an instinct that told him that if he walked that way, he would get money. However, he knew this ability was far from that simple and believed he could develop it further. If he gave an example, at this moment, his eyes of wealth was like a normal Sharingan, but in the future, he believed that he could turn it into a Menkyo Sharingan like, probably. Still, while money was good, he wanted a girlfriend since he had to admit that it was hard to live with such excessive energy. If he was transmigrated into a married man, then it would be wonderful. Unfortunately, he didn't. No, I can't complain all the time. It was pathetic to blame his circumstances instead of working hard to change everything. Everyone had their own problems, and they had been given a system, so he had to make full use of it. However, it didn't change the fact that he wanted a girlfriend. As he thought so, he received a chat from Chika, which made him smile. At the same time, as Chika received a little late reply, she also showed a silly smile and relief. Hey! Jim? Really? Chika, can you show me the photo? Ishigami, ABS photo. JPG. She was a bit shy, but she was curious, and soon, she got his ABS photo. Her face was hot, but she kept her smile, then quickly replied. Chika, you are too thin. Work harder, boy. Ishigami. Yet, after she said that, she looked at his ABS photo again, observing the manly shape of his muscles that slowly showed as he worked out. Ishigami might only start working out for a short time, but since he was slender or even thin, his progress was easily shown. However, for Kaguya, who watched Chika, who showed a silly smile all the time, she showed a helpless smile. Are you okay, Shinomiya? Ah. Kaguya was startled and looked at Shirogane, who asked her such a question. I am fine. Thank you for asking. Is that so? Still, Shirogane felt worried since he could see that Kaguya was quite absent-minded. If you are not fine, you should take a rest, you know. Maybe I will take your offer then. When she said those words, Chika's attention was quickly attracted to her, and she worriedly asked her what had happened to her. What's wrong, Kaguya-san? Are you okay? Watching the worried expression on this silly girl's expression, Kaguya had to say Chika was her good friend even if this girl's breasts were too big for her liking. Yet, this also made her wonder, as if a stand user would attract another stand user, would someone with something big attract someone with big? If so, Kaguya couldn't help but look at Shirogane's crotch. While Shirogane wasn't sure, he could tell that Kaguya wasn't in a good state. Regardless of what was happening in the student council, Ishigami's days were peaceful. He had been studying and trying his new ability, and somehow, he found the best way to use it. However, the next day, he felt something weird since he felt that someone had been watching him. It felt like someone stalked him or someone just wanted to approach him, but as he had been with many people and was hardly alone, this person had a hard time approaching him. Still, at the end of the class, when he returned the books to the library and decided to study for a while in the library, similar hands closed his eyes and asked him the same silly question. Try to guess who I am. As Ishigami felt the two softness on the back of his head, he could tell who the person who closed his eyes was. Yet, unlike before, as he almost died yesterday, he decided to take a proactive approach, and thus, Ishigami closed his eyes and leaned back on the two softness behind his head. Chapter 26, One of my dreams is achieved. Breasts. They were soft and warm and also made you feel at peace. Like a baby who loved being in the embrace of their mother, Ishigami also loved the feeling of Tsubame's boobs on the back of his head, yet while he enjoyed them, he knew that he couldn't enjoy them openly. Instead, he had to act, and this was also a test for him, a way to improve his acting skills. More importantly, as a student, he aspired to learn to become better, so. Who are you? What are you doing? Ishigami appeared like he was in a panic, moving his head right and left exaggeratedly like a blind man, but when he did so, the right and left of his cheeks lay on Tsubame's right and left breasts. The right was on the right, and the left was the left. His act was absolute, and no one could tell he was acting. Instead of a scumbag, who just wanted to feel Tsubame's breasts, he was like someone who was afraid of the dark and being startled. At the same time, Ishigami had to say that the big one was better. Wait, don't move around, Ishigami-kun. It's me. It's Tsubame-senpai. Tsubame panicked when Ishigami moved his head around, feeling his face and head rubbing against her breasts. While her uniform and bra divided became the wall that separated his head and her breasts, his exaggerated movement caused a reaction on her sensitive body and made her face flush red. Tsubame-senpai? Really? Tsubame-senpai isn't as naughty as you. Even so, Ishigami remained suspicious and tried to escape from Tsubame's hands, but his body remained honest and laid on those bountiful fleshes. It's me. It's me. Tsubame quickly let go of him to show that she wasn't a fake. Oh, it's you, Tsubame-senpai. Ishigami sighed with both regret and relief when Tsubame let go of him. You made me so startled. As Ishigami patted his chest as if he was terrified, Tsubame also rubbed her chest as she looked at him resentfully, but watching his expression, she thought, she really had scared him. Yet, when she thought about how focused Ishigami was, she also knew that she might have scared him. Only. You bad boy. The fact that Ishigami got a feel for her breasts didn't change. It hurts. Ishigami covered his head exaggeratedly and asked if he had been wronged. Why did you hit me, senpai? It's for your punishment. What for? Did I do something? Watching his innocent and confused expression, Tsubame sighed helplessly, then sat by his side like nothing had happened. Do you even need me to remind you? I am sorry. As expected, Tsubame knew what he did. It's good that you are such an honest boy. Yet, as expected, Tsubame was a gentle and warm senior, as always. Feeling the gentle touch on his head, Ishigami wondered how her gentle touch felt when she rubbed his other head. Regardless, he pushed her hand away since he didn't like being treated like a young boy. After all, if he wished to, he could make a boy. So, why are you here, senpai? What? You think it is weird of me to be in the library? Hearing his question, Tsubame felt a little offended somehow. You don't like a type that likes to visit a library, after all. Ishigami-kun, while I might not seem like one, I am ranked 7th in the entire grade. Tsubame might appear to be a bubbly and clumsy girl, but it didn't mean she was stupid. Really? Really? Still, as the two bickered, someone suddenly interrupted them. SHHH. The two quickly turned and saw Kobachi, who stared at them with a stern expression. This is a library. Be quiet, you two. There are many who wish to study and read in peace here. We're sorry. 2x. After they apologized, Kobachi stared at them for a while before she left. Let's be quiet, senpai. It was all your fault, though. If you didn't startle me, then this wouldn't happen, right? Only by now did Tsubame realize how cunning this junior of hers was. Still, while pouting, she asked, Are you studying? Yup. You are such a good student. As Tsubame wanted to pat his head again, Ishigami quickly reacted and caught her hands. Senpai, I think it is rude to touch someone's head like that. But didn't you like it? Do I look like someone who enjoys getting a head pat? Yes. Ishigami kept holding Tsubame's hands as he looked at her, then said, Then, what if I give you a head pat? Tsubame was startled by this sudden counter, but then Ishigami showed an as expected expression. See? You are not good at it, right? No. Okay. Do it. Give me a head pat. Tsubame moved her head closer to him, waiting for him to give her a head pat. Ishigami looked at her for a moment, wondering whether this girl was an idiot or smart. Nevertheless, unlike a virgin boy who hesitated, he softly and gently gave the senior of his a head pat. Still, Sub-aim was also stunned since there was no hesitation in Ishigami's action, but... well, this isn't bad at all. Sub-aim closed her eyes, enjoying the feeling of a head pat from Ishigami. See? This is rude, right? It feels good. Pervert. I am not. Watching Ishigami, who tried to move away from her, Sub-aim looked at him resentfully and kept chasing him. I am going to study, senpai. Please don't bother me. Study? Isn't it too early for that? What is your score, by the way? Horrible. Hey? Really? Sub-aim was genuinely shocked since she thought that Ishigami had a good score on his report. If I am good, then I won't study. It's good that you are honest, though. Thanks. However, you don't have to worry. Suddenly, Sub-aim became excited and told him that everything was going to be okay, which confused him. Why so? Because I am here to teach you. Sub-aim had been thinking about how to repay him since Ishigami had saved her before. Over the past few days, she had been thinking of thanking him, and she even wished to meet him earlier before, but as there was hardly time for him to be alone, she had been hesitating to approach him and only dared to go after him after he was alone in the library. Still, to show her qualifications, she took her smartphone and showed her study report, which she usually kept to show her mother. See? Are you still under the assumption that I am not smart enough? Watching her smug expression as she showed the photo of her report, Ishigami thought about one of his dreams of being taught by a gentle senior. Unlike Kaguya, Sub-aim was gentle and soft, so... please take care of me, senpai. Leave everything to your senpai. As Sub-aim patted her chest confidently, her breasts also swayed, giving motivation to her junior to study harder. Yet, as she watched the interaction between the two, Kobachi couldn't help but feel gloomy. While she was happy that all the misunderstandings about him had cleared up and that he had returned to what was before, watching him get so chummy with another girl made her depressed. Kobachi knew that she should wish for his happiness, especially after what had happened to him, and she also knew she didn't have a right to stand by his side. More importantly, she felt that it was better for him to be so close to Sub-aim instead of Onodera as they were in different grades, so that way, she wouldn't see them flirting. At the same time, she didn't think that Onodera was fit to be his partner, especially after what Onodera did to him. And if she can, then... Kobachi threw her thoughts away and hoped for Ishigami and Sub-aim to be together. Yet, why am I still uncomfortable? Shaking her head, she thought about focusing on her librarian job, moving, sorting, and returning the books to the shelves so she wouldn't focus her attention on them and make her mind busy. It was just that she couldn't focus, and her mind had always been distracted, so when she climbed the stairs and was about to return the book, her feet slipped, and she fell. Her mind was blank, and she couldn't say a single word as she was too startled. The fear started to occupy her mind, and she closed her eyes, thinking of the pain that was about to come, but... You startled me, be careful, okay? What welcomed her was a powerful arm that caught her firmly and almost suffocated her, yet this was nice, this slightly painful feeling was comfortable, and she wanted to be embraced even tighter, especially when she heard a familiar voice from behind. Are you okay, Ozaragi-san? Chapter 27, She is the best for him. Ishigami was startled when Kobachi was about to fall, and it was fortunate that he was just about to search for another book. If I didn't catch her. Still, he had to say, was she quite heavy, or was he too weak? However, he also realized that he wasn't a harem protagonist since if he was one, then when Kobachi fell on his face, squeezing him with her slender thighs and showing him her panties. Regardless, he wanted her to stand up as soon as possible. Can you stand up? Thank you, Ishigami. When he saw Kobachi wanted to stand up immediately, he quickly reminded her to be careful. Slow down. Don't be in a hurry. Calm down. Oh okay. Naturally, Kobachi was still in shock after she fell, so she needed to lean on him for a while, but somehow, she took her time. Still, fortunately, Ishigami didn't hurry her or embarrass her by teasing her. Are you okay? Yeah, I am fine. Thanks, Ishigami. Be careful, girl. Rest there first. I will help you. When Kobachi let him go and sat on the stool nearby, Ishigami sighed in relief since he had been on his limit before. Sit there. I will help you to put the books back. Thank you. Kobachi didn't refuse him and just watched him, helping her, as she rested quietly, watching his figure from the side. She had been watching him, so she knew him well, yet at the same time, she also didn't know him much. She might have watched him, but the distance between them was too far, and it was her first time observing him from a close distance. His figure was straight, his features were sharp, and when she thought about how he had held her before, she could feel how strong and firm his strength was. Was it all due to him joining the gym? Kobachi recalled that Onodera had asked him a question about what he did after school, and he told Onodera that he had joined a gym. Even though it was only for a short time since he had joined, she could tell that his features were no longer as weak and listless as before, which made him become more attractive, yet she hoped that his body wouldn't be all muscles. I have heard that you joined a gym, Ishigami. Well, yet. Do you want to become a bodybuilder like a Terminator? No, why did you think that I wanted to have such a body? Ishigami was speechless. I just want to have a healthy body. That's good then. Kobachi sighed in relief inwardly, but then she asked, but why were you here? Are you done flirting with Tsubame-senpai? Flirting. Ishigami glanced at Kobachi and said calmly, we were studying. We weren't flirting. He never really flirted, but Tsubame was all touchy and gentle, so it might appear like they did so from the outside. However, he had to fix this misunderstanding. I am sorry if I made a mistake. Kobachi apologized since she knew that she might have said too much. But what do you think of Tsubame-senpai? Aren't you happy to have such a beautiful senior to teach you? Being taught by a beautiful senior aside, I am grateful to her since my grade isn't that good, and she is good at teaching. Was that the point? Kobachi was speechless. Don't you feel anything when she taught you? What do you mean? How about you be clear to me instead of asking me in such a round way bout? Ishigami looked at Kobachi, staring at her and waiting for her to say what she wanted to ask from her mind. Kobachi fell in silence, thinking that Ishigami really had changed, but then, was it all due to her being too pushy? She knew that they hardly talked to each other and that they had just started talking to each other recently. While she had known him for so long, she knew that with how their relationship had been previously, she knew that her questions might be excessive. I am sorry. No, it's fine. I guess it is normal for you to think that I might have fallen for her or something. Do you like her? Kobachi quickly asked without much thought. You sure ask such a straightforward question. But I guess it is normal of you to fall for her, and if you do, I will support you. Instead of being with Aino or Onodera, Kobachi wished Ishigami would fall for Tsubame because that would make him happy. As for her feelings, there was no need to worry about those since she wished for him to be happy, and she was sure that Tsubame would make him happy. Not Aino or Onodera. It had to be Tsubame, so that way. I can't deny that she is likable, but I think it is too early for me to say that I love her or I want to make her my girlfriend, right? Now, right? Then, as you get close to each other, there is a chance for you to fall for her and wish to make her a girlfriend in the future, right? That's the question of the future. We have only met each other, and there is no need to be in a hurry. Regardless, Onodera could tell that Ishigami was attracted to Tsubame, which she didn't feel surprised or even happy to see, but then, she also asked, do you want a girlfriend? I do. Ishigami nodded. I am a normal high school student, after all. I think it will be abnormal if I don't have such an interest. Well, that's true. Then, how about you? You have been asking me so many questions. Ishigami looked at Kobachi and asked, have you thought about getting a boyfriend? Well. Kobachi stared at Ishigami, who asked such a question. If there was a reason why she looked like this, it was because she didn't expect him to ask such a question. Ozaragi-san. Ah. Kobachi took a deep breath, trying to calm her heart, then said calmly, I haven't fallen in love with someone now. Lie. Then, if you fall for someone, you will date him. No, I haven't thought of getting a boyfriend in high school. Lie. Kobachi thought so, but she knew that she didn't have a right to be with him, especially when she knew she just watched from the side when Ishigami was in torment. This was her punishment, and it was also something that she had decided since she had chosen a friendship over her feelings, but as they continued to talk, it was hard to contain her feelings. Many guys will be disappointed then. Ishigami knew that Kobachi was popular, and even many students from different schools came to visit her, which made him speechless, thinking that high school really had nothing to do. It was just. Are you too? Somehow, those words blurted out from her lips. Kobachi wanted to take those words back, but it was too late, and her heart beat rapidly as she saw him staring at her. Within the aisle, between the bookshelves, there were only the two, no one was around. The library was quiet, and no one was around besides them. His expression was calm, staring at her softly, yet firmly, like a man, which made her anticipate the answer that she had been waiting for, but... "Yukun, are you here?" Sub-Aim looked around and found Ishigami. "Ah, here you are. Have you found the book?" She also found Kobachi, which confused her. "Koba-chan. Sorry, senpai. Ozuragi-san almost fell before, so I helped her to return the books to the shelves." "Ah, are you, okay, Koba-chan?" "Yes, I am fine, thank you, Sub-Aim senpai." "Yukun." Yet, inwardly, Kobachi felt gloomy, wondering how long it had been since Sub-Aim started to call Ishigami by his first name. However, wasn't this good? This way. As Kobachi saw how gentle and attentive Sub-Aim was, she knew that it was best for Ishigami to be with Sub-Aim. "You should call me Yukun. I will come to help." It was so sudden after all. With Sub-Aim's help, soon, they finished returning all the books to the shelves and returned together before Ishigami and Sub-Aim started to learn once again, and Kobachi returned to her usual place as she sat down quietly, reading without bothering them. Still, a petite figure suddenly entered the library and looked around quietly, seemingly anxious yet also filled with anticipation. Kobachi noticed this figure and called her softly, "Aino." "Koba-chan." Aino Miko nodded at her friend, then found the person that she had been looking for. She pursed her lips and sighed in relief, thinking that Ishigami really wanted to improve, which made her happy, but then she wasn't so happy when she saw that he wasn't alone. "That's Sub-Aim senpai? Why is she here with Ishigami?" Kobachi pushed the frame of her glasses and said, "She taught him to study." "Oh." Watching the confusion on Aino's face, Kobachi said softly, "They might start to date each other in the future." Those words made Aino fall into silence, lowering her head, taking a deep breath, and then snorting. "Humph. He is dreaming. Sub-Aim senpai is out of his league." Even so, she also felt that Sub-Aim was a good girlfriend for Ishigami, especially when she could see how close they were. "I will go back on patrol first." "Okay, do your best." Watching Aino walk out of the library to continue patrolling as a member of the Public Morals Committee, Kobachi let out a sigh quietly. It was just that Aino wasn't the only person who came to the library to visit Ishigami, and unlike Aino, she couldn't stop her. So, at this moment, she could only watch this girl come toward Ishigami and Sub-Aim, destroying the good atmosphere between them. "You? Sub-Aim senpai." Chapter 28, "Ah, I said it." "Rei." Hearing his name called, Ishigami looked up and saw Onodera. Still, he was as calm as ever, but strangely enough, Sub-Aim felt a little panicked. However, she soon calmed down and greeted Onodera in a friendly way as usual. "Rei-chan." Regardless, Sub-Aim couldn't help but glance at Ishigami and Onodera, feeling slightly surprised that they called each other by their first names. Still, she just taught Ishigami, and she didn't think she had done anything wrong. Even if they did, it didn't matter since she knew neither of them dated each other. If someone was wrong, it would be Onodera, who thought her relationship with Ishigami was special. "What are you two doing?" When she asked, she approached them, trying to appear as calm as possible. Yet, inwardly, she felt uncomfortable watching how close Ishigami and Sub-Aim were. She knew Ishigami would be studying in the library, so when she finished her club, she came directly to visit him, wishing to study together. At the same time, she thought of teaching him since she knew that his grade wasn't that good, yet when she arrived, she didn't expect Sub-Aim to be there. "She is teaching me." "Yup." Sub-Aim nodded and said happily, "Yukun is smart. He can understand my teaching easily. Don't act like a mother who is happy that her son is smart. Geez, don't get embarrassed, okay? As I have said before, don't get all too touchy, okay?" Ishigami was so helpless when Sub-Aim tried to touch him again and quickly stopped her. Let's say that he touched her, what would happen? Oh, right, this young woman was a pervert, so she enjoyed being touched by a young man like him. As the two started to talk to each other, Onodera could feel that she couldn't enter the world of the two, and at the same time, she felt like he slowly disappeared from her. While she knew that Tsubame only taught Ishigami, she couldn't help but feel regret for introducing Tsubame to Ishigami. Still, Ishigami was as gentle as ever, so he had never ignored Onodera. "Rei, I have Tsubame senpai, who is ranked 7th in the entire grade, to teach me now. Be careful. On the next exam, I will overtake you. Do you have to mention my rank now?" Tsubame was speechless. "I think that your achievement will make it easier for Rei to understand how dangerous I am going to be in the next exam. That's my achievement, okay? If you want to brag, use yours later." Tsubame sighed, then looked at Onodera with a smile. "Rei-chan, do you want me to teach you? Let's stop this guy from getting ahead of himself." "That's a good idea." Ishigami nodded and said solemnly, "In the shonen manga, the existence of a rival is necessary to make the protagonist become stronger, so let's study together Rei. Rei-chan, come on. Follow us to study and use your power to beat this protagonist wannabe." Hey. Tsubame-sensei, you can't be unfair and teach Rei all the time. It's fine, right? I have taught you before. Now, it is Rei-chan's turn. Watching their comedic exchange, Onodera smiled and joined their study. Okay. I will join, but Ishigami, let me show you the difference between the top 50th and the second from the last position, okay? Rei, don't bully me, okay? As Ishigami was speechless, Tsubame laughed. Onodera couldn't help but think that they could become a sweet couple. With Tsubame, she could imagine that Ishigami would be happy, and for her, who wished to help him, she knew that she should help Ishigami, yet, she wondered why, she didn't like it. "I hate it." Onodera didn't like how Tsubame would be so close to Ishigami. She knew that this thought of hers was selfish, especially when she knew that she had mocked him and even joined others in saying many horrible things to him. Frankly, she knew that she wasn't fit to be with him or even think to gain his affection. Yes, she knew her feelings well toward him, but as expected, as a girl, she was too shy to acknowledge it, and she also wasn't sure whether Ishigami liked her, yet every time they talked, they had fun together, and the time they spent together, while it might be short, he had become someone important for her, so when she thought he would do all of the things they experienced to other girls, she just didn't like the idea and she wanted him for herself. However, watching how focused Ishigami was when studying and how Tsubame answered all of his questions seriously, Onodera closed her lips and also joined the study, yet, as expected, she couldn't focus. Regardless, watching the quiet Onodera, Kobachi nodded, feeling relief inwardly. As long as it isn't Onodera, everything is fine. As they studied, the time felt moving so fast, and soon after, it was time for the library to close. Naturally, they left the library after they had cleaned up their books and greeted Kobachi, who was working on the library committee. However, they didn't go home together since Tsubame had something to do. "I have to go back early. My older brother is about to get married, so I am going to meet my sister-in-law. Let's study together tomorrow again, okay?" While everything started because she wanted to repay him, Tsubame enjoyed her time with him and couldn't wait until tomorrow to come so she could be with him, no, to teach him. "Thank you, senpai. 2x. See you tomorrow." Like a gale, Tsubame left, prepared to meet her sister-in-law, leaving Ishigami and Onodera alone. "Let's go back, Rei." While Onodera felt like her chest was being constricted by something, she could see he was calm and appeared gentle as usual. Was she the only one who felt this feeling? Did his heart race when they were alone? Or did he like Tsubame more? Onodera didn't like it, but if it was for his happiness, she thought that it was the best since she knew well that Tsubame was a good woman and she should support him, but... How did you have Tsubame-senpai to teach you, you? To be honest, I am not sure, but she suddenly came to me and told me that she would teach me when she saw me studying in the library. Oh? So, you two happened to meet each other in the library before? That should be the case. I didn't expect her to be the type who would go to the library. Me too, but now, it is understandable since she is ranked 7th in the entire grade. You are, right. Ishigami decided to keep quiet about the fact that Tsubame had been following him and waiting for him to be alone. She is beautiful, isn't she? Yet. Onodera tried to smile as she asked, isn't she gentle? She is too close to my liking, though. Did you fall for her? Onodera thought that Ishigami would give her a similar instantaneous answer, which made her eyes wet, but unexpectedly, he turned, looked at her, held her hand, and asked her softly, "What's wrong? Don't. Please, don't be gentle like this for me. I don't deserve it." The more gentle he was, the more she was unable to hold her feelings. At this moment, she was afraid that all the feelings that she had suppressed would overflow, and she would say something that she shouldn't say to him. "I don't think so." Ishigami shook his head, since if Onodera didn't deserve his kindness, then who would be? "You were the first person who approached me. Even if everyone tried to avoid me, you didn't care about them and tried to help me. More importantly, you apologized and admitted your mistakes. If that wasn't enough of a reason for me to be kind to you, then what is enough?" In the beginning, Ishigami wanted to take revenge on this horrible girl who mocked him. He knew that she tried to be better, especially when she had treated him with many things and, more importantly, wished to help him change. Their beginning might not be good, but as she was sincere, he would be lying if he wasn't moved by her words. "Let's go back." As Ishigami let go of her hand, thinking of getting a snack or two before going to the gym, his hand was grasped. Naturally, he was familiar with this hand, as he had held this hand several times. "Rei. You." Watching his confusion, Onodera blurted out her feelings, "I like you, you. Be my boyfriend." "Ah, I said it." Chapter 29, A Girlfriend. Naturally, it was impossible for Ishigami not to be stunned, especially when he didn't expect that he would be so confessed so suddenly. At that moment, he was like that girl who had suddenly been confessed to by a close male friend. If he was a female, then he would probably say, "Thank you, but I have always thought of you as an older brother." Something like that? Regardless, Onodera realized how messed up she was, especially when she confessed to him so suddenly like this. She was in a panic and just wished to escape as soon as possible. I am sorry. I must have troubled you. Please forget about that. Please forgive me, forget it, okay? See you tomorrow." Her eyes were in tears, wondering why she had messed up so badly. All she thought of was running away, thinking that she would be obviously rejected by him, but when her feet moved, she suddenly stopped since her hand was held firmly by Ishigami. "Why you?" As her hand was held firmly by him, she looked at him in confusion. "Could I treat that as a joke, Rei?" Ishigami asked earnestly. Onodera felt shy and hesitated, but then, as her eyes met his, she regained her courage, took a deep breath, and shook her head. "No." Strangely enough, she was calm at that moment, and all the feelings within her heart came out so naturally from her moist, cherry lips. I know that it might be strange even for you, and you might doubt me, especially when you considered our previous relationship, but, even if the time I spent with you was short, I understand that I have fallen for you, and. I want you to be my boyfriend." Her voice was a bit low, yet it was firm, expressing her feelings to him, who did his best to change. She had watched him, and she understood what kind of a man he was, and because of that, she didn't want to lose him. She wanted him to be hers. Still, she knew that she was being reckless, especially when she also didn't know about his feelings, yet it didn't matter since when she thought Ishigami would understand her feelings and realized that she didn't want them to be only a friend, she wished for him to reciprocate her feelings in the same way and be a boyfriend and a girlfriend. Onodera was nervous, yet she looked up at him, who was in a daze before he blushed. Are you blushing? If you know, then you don't have to say it, okay? Ishigami would be lying if he wasn't embarrassed when he heard her sincere confession, but more importantly, he was surprised. He thought of the possibility of them dating, but it wasn't too soon, and he believed that it would take them a month or more as it was the most common span that one needed to date the other. Still, even if he failed to get Onodera, it didn't matter since he had made a move on many heroines at the same time, yet, unexpectedly, in just a few days, Onodera confessed to him, but then, he also couldn't help but feel complex, especially after Kaguya had been rubbing his erection this afternoon. However, sure. Ishigami accepted Onodera's confession and sincerely answered her. Please take care of me, Rei. He wasn't like the harem protagonist who had a crush on a girl and hesitated in the face of the confession of others. Onodera was cute, and she liked him. More importantly, she confessed to him, so there was no need for him to have a long, complicated, an arduous journey to get a girlfriend. Lastly, he just wanted a girlfriend so he could finish the quest from his system. All heroines were fine, and if there was a chance before him, he would be an idiot to refuse Onodera. Yes, he knew that his feelings might be shallow or even fake, but whatever his feelings were, he got a girlfriend. That's what is important, right? Yet, Onodera was dumbfounded as she didn't expect that her confession would be accepted. While she was happy that she wanted to hug him right away, she couldn't help but hesitate, wondering whether it was okay. Are you sure? Are you fine with me? Is there a problem with you? I had mocked you before and joined others in hurting you. Do you think I am fit to be your girlfriend? Yes, Onodera was happy that Ishigami accepted her confession, but she couldn't help but think that she felt she wasn't worthy of him. However, she couldn't finish her words since Ishigami took her lips. When their lips touched each other, they were in a daze. Soft and warm. The two thought as they had their first kiss, and the hesitation in her heart instantly disappeared. While Ishigami wanted to do more, he was afraid that he couldn't control himself, so he pulled away and said, "There. You have taken my first kiss. Take responsibility, okay? That's my first kiss too." Onodera was speechless and couldn't help but get emotional as it was also her first kiss. Then, wasn't it fair? You have mine. I have yours. There were many things that Onodera wanted to say, but all of her complaints disappeared as his hand firmly held onto hers. He was no longer Tsundere, who held her hand for a moment and then let her go. This time, he didn't let her go and held her hand naturally. "Let's go back," Ishigami said softly. All of her worries disappeared, and she showed a silly, happy smile as she followed his words obediently. There was no hesitation in his actions anymore, and he didn't tease her anymore but showed her through action that they had formed a relationship, a boyfriend and a girlfriend. "Love you." Onodera smiled sweetly as she said those words. Please say you love me too. If you let me kiss you, I will say it. Let's go somewhere quiet." While she didn't mind him kissing her, Onodera felt that it was too dangerous to kiss on the corridor like that again as she was afraid someone might see them, and at the same time, she also wanted to taste his lips better. Pervert. Ishigami could tell that this girl also wanted to kiss him. The pervert was you, right? Yet, no matter what, Onodera was happy. However, as the two left, they held each other's hands, but in the corner, one girl took a deep breath calmly as she leaned on the door of the library. Her hands clutched onto her skirt tightly before they were slowly loosened as she showed a bitter smile on her face. While she had a feeling Onodera had a feeling toward him, she didn't expect Onodera to make such a move, yet she also didn't intend to blame Ishigami since she didn't want him to be hurt either, and she just wanted him to be happy. She was fine as long as he was happy, but why couldn't she feel happy? Could you do that in a place I couldn't see? Still, Kobachi was glad that no one was around since, this way, no one could see her current expression. Staying in the library for a while, she waited until her tears stopped, calming herself, erasing all the traces of her sadness, then walked out of the library and then locked the door firmly like her heart as she knew nothing could be done now. Yet, while Kobachi realized everything, the others didn't know anything, and they just couldn't help but think about the wonderful things they would do with him, especially those who had a promise to see him. However, they didn't know that in the empty classroom where Kaguya had brought him before, Ishigami had started to make out with Onodera. Everything was too late. He was already taken. Chapter 30, For the Limited Time with You. Congratulations, you have received design talent. After he went to the gym and went home, Ishigami checked his system as he sat on his chair, studying and thinking about his future. As expected, the moment he dated Onodera, the system directly rewarded him. Still, Kaguya's case also gave him an understanding that he didn't have to date the heroine if he wanted to get a reward, but once he made a girlfriend, the option to go to another world was opened. Naturally, he refused since how long he had been in this world? It hadn't been a week since he came to this world, then suddenly, he got an offer to go to another world. Of course, he refused it, especially when he knew that the world he would go to wasn't his original world but a different world, which meant he would encounter a similar quest and mission, which made him helpless. Frankly, getting a girlfriend could be said to be either easy or difficult, depending on the type of person or character he was transmigrated to and the targeted heroines. This time, he was lucky that he became Ishigami Yu, who came from a relatively wealthy family and was also good-looking, but then again, he couldn't say that he was all that lucky, especially with Ishigami's previous stigma. If he wasn't smart enough to quickly take care of that problem, it would be difficult for him to even get a girlfriend. After all, what kind of woman wanted to go out with a stalker and a violent man who beat up others? Fortunately, everything was cleared up, and fortunately, his luck was good that he met a kind girl. To be honest, he had never expected that he would date someone so fast, and he also didn't think that he could get Onodera so easily. Even if they were so close, he knew that there was room for rejection, and this was also the reason why he made a move on many girls. If one girl rejected him, then he could move on to another since it was a waste of time to stick up with the girl who had rejected him. However, as he had made a girlfriend, there was no need to worry about anything, and he could immediately enjoy his reward. Not only did he get a sweet girlfriend who let him hold her hand and kiss immediately, but the system also gave him a reward. At this moment, wasn't he a winner in life? But design talent, hey! Ishigami had never thought he would gain such a reward, but he could tell that it was useful, especially when he could imagine better clothes for people to wear when he saw someone or a better design for the house he saw along the street when he went home. Naturally, there were many other things that could be used with this talent. The design was used in many things in life, and it was so useful and definitely helped him to live a better life in the future. However, talent is only a talent. If Ishigami didn't work hard to make his talent bloom, then it would be meaningless. Regardless, unlike the reward he gained from Kaguya, the reward from Onodera was quite modest, he thought. Still, it didn't mean that it was bad since, with this talent, he could imagine that he could become a famous architect like Zaha Hadid, Tadao Ando, or Norman Foster. It was also possible for him to become a famous clothes designer like Tom Ford, Vivienne Westwood, or Yves Saint Laurent. Well, in any subject related to design, Ishigami knew that he could be the best. Still, when he thought about his future as he knew that he would go to another world again and receive the same mission, he felt, shouldn't he do his best? 10 years. It might be strange when he suddenly mentioned that amount of time without any explanation, but it was a span of time that he could stay in this world before he left for another world to start his other mission. It wasn't possible for him to wait until he passed away before he was transferred to another world to do his mission. While the content of the quest should be the same, which was to date a girl, the character he would be transmigrated to would be different. Still, once again, he was lucky that he was transmigrated into Ishigami since not only was his family quite wealthy, he was quite handsome, and more importantly, his head was bright, yet what about the future character he would be transmigrated to? Ishigami knew that he wouldn't be transmigrated into a protagonist but a random male character that usually appeared on the side of the protagonist, and because of that, what if there was a defect in that character? While he didn't wish so, anything was possible, so while he was in this world, should he work even harder and get more rewards? Not only did he have to gain more experience in a variety of things, but various knowledge that would help him in his future quest, especially when he knew all of his skills would be reset. Yes, his skills would be reset and returned to zero, but his knowledge, experience, and abilities would remain no matter what kind of character he was transmigrated to. This was important, he thought. If possible, he wanted to learn more about laws and something similar so it could help him in his future life. At the same time, while it was despicable, he thought about getting more girlfriends. There was no doubt that the rewards he gained from Kaguya and Onodera were impressive, and even if he was transmigrated to another world again, those skills would come along with him, so it would help his new life. Still, if the rewards he gained from Kaguya and Onodera could help him in the future, what about the other heroines? What am I thinking? If it was in another country, the act of having many women might be possible, but where was this? Japan. It was impossible for him to form polygamy in a legal way. More importantly, all the heroines in this world were crazily strong. Kaguya Shinomiya, was there even a need to explain how strong she was? If she wished, Ishigami could say goodbye to his everyday life. Chika Fujiwara, the silly girl, was also the daughter of a famous political family and the granddaughter of the previous prime minister. Aino Maiko, the girl he was close to in middle school, was the daughter of a judge at the Supreme Court. His current girlfriend, Onodera Rei, was the daughter of the jewelry company owner. Even Tsubame Koyasu, his sweet senior, was also the daughter of a world-class bartender and a regional manager of a multinational food company. The other heroines also had an exceptional background, such as the daughter of a Yakuza group, the granddaughter of a high-ranking Shinto priest, the daughter of the CEO of an IT company, or even the daughter of the chief editor of a famous newspaper. In other words, none of the heroines at the Shuchiin Academy could be messed around. If it was One Piece, he would be like Usopp, he thought, so how dare he mess around with those heroines whose presence was similar to 4 emperors, admirals, or even the world government. He was just lucky that he got a girlfriend and met a simple, good girl, so shouldn't he treat her better? Even if this girlfriend treated him like shit in the beginning, he thought. Regardless, as he had finished his quest, his time in this world was limited, so he shouldn't waste his time. 10 years. It might seem long, but when there was such a limit, he couldn't help but feel slightly at a loss, but then, it wasn't like it was impossible for him to return, and as long as he finished his next quest, he could return to this world. Well, it is useless to think about those complicated things. As he had a girlfriend, what he needed to do was to improve himself more, gain more knowledge and experience, and treasure the limited time he had in this world. However, if there was something that he was glad for, when he went to another world, the time in this world would stop, so everything should be okay. Still, from what he had thought before, if the heroines weren't strong and capable of destroying him, then he didn't refuse the idea of having more women. The seed was already implemented, and it only needed to wait for a time for it to bloom. At the same time, Ishigami also didn't realize his decision to date Onodera would lead to an experience that he had never imagined before. Chapter 31, A Youth is like a monkey in a heat. Not only did he get a girlfriend, but Ishigami also raised his physical ability to level 2. Physical level 2, 4/100. In the mirror, he could see his body become better. His body was no longer all bones, and while it wasn't conspicuous, it was easy to tell that he had the body of a manly man. As expected, a thin body is easier to develop. Unlike a fat body that had loose skin, which made it harder to develop, the thin body was easy to develop since as long as he trained a little harder, the muscles on his body quickly formed and turned him into a healthy young man, who was favored by many older ladies. Still, he had to say that being a young man was hard, especially when he was so healthy. As a young man, his body was jumpy, and it felt like he couldn't stay calm, especially when he looked at a woman. Maybe this didn't happen at all since some people had low sexual needs, but his needs in that area were probably strong, and as his physical ability improved, he was in a mess. Even worse, there were many charming women around his side, and while he didn't want to think something rude about them, when he thought about how soft Chika was, how bold Kaguya was, how gentle Tsubame was, and how obscene the kiss he shared with Onodera, he let out a helpless sigh, staring at his raging erection. Wet dreams aside, he really didn't want to wank himself, so he could only wait for Onodera to open up to him. Wait. Wait. He rubbed his temple, trying to calm himself, feeling helpless by how energetic his body was. Usually, a protagonist should be cool, able to control themselves, and all calm, yet why was he just so horny? I'm like a monkey in the heat. It wasn't that he couldn't control himself, especially when he could work out or study, but, when he neither did that, it was just, so fucking damn hard. Rubbing his face with cold water, he hoped that everything was solved, but... You. How long are you going to be in the bathroom? You are going to be late. It seemed he knew a way to calm himself. Ishigami definitely didn't do anything weird, instead, he was calm the moment his mother saw him as he was embarrassed, feeling ashamed, thinking his naked body was seen. While there might be a memory of him bathing with his mother during childhood, it was a time when he didn't know the difference between a man and a woman. Yet, he still knew what to do and wouldn't do, so he hurriedly left, thinking it was horrible to be young since his head had always been filled with messy things. Excess energy made his head often hallucinate, and it was even worse when he just kept everything inside. Pressing his head against the door of the train, he closed his eyes, trying to calm down, and at the same time, trying to chant a sutra, thinking that it could calm him down. Still, as he did so, he couldn't help but hear the conversation of a few girls on the side. Hey, isn't he kind of cute? Ah, now you mention it. From the uniform, he seems to be from the Shuchiin Academy. Do you want to talk with him? But if I am rejected, then won't it be hard for me to enter the train? Ishigami fell in silence, realizing that he had become popular. This was weird, he thought, considering how low the opinion of others toward him was, and it might be his first time to be treated this way, but then again, he had cut his hair, and his body had also improved. More importantly, the way he carried himself was different. Unlike the previous Ishigami, who had always hung his head low and had his face mostly covered by hair, He stood tall, his back was straight, and the muscles on his body made him appear more manly. If there was a little trouble, it would be the fact that he might need to change his uniform in the future. Not due to the bulky muscles like a Terminator, but due to his height increase. Regardless, he turned and met the gazes of the girls who talked to him, and from their uniforms, he could tell that they were from another school nearby. Like any guy in high school, the girls were also quite pervy, as they also wished to have a romance like in the shoujo manga, waiting for their prince in white horse to come to them. Or a domineering CEO to come and dominate them. Unfortunately, those girls wouldn't meet such a prince in high school, as most high school students were rarely able to talk to a female maturely and calmly. While not all, most of them would be jumpy, thinking whether that female liked them, turning away, blushing, and feeling embarrassed, but this was normal as they were in the process of learning. Still, it was clear that the girls were also embarrassed since Ishigami noticed them, but facing them, he smiled softly, telling them there was no harm, which caused them to be shy but also gave them the courage to approach him. If you don't mind, can we get to know each other? Ishigami never thought that they would really approach him. I am sorry. I have a girlfriend. Ishigami decided to say so since he noticed the same students inside the car. He had just made a girlfriend yesterday. If someone suddenly said that he tried to get to know cute girls from another school, what would happen? He was afraid that tonight, he would be thrown into Tokyo Bay while being stuck in a cemented barrel. Not only due to Onodera but because of Kaguya. Frankly, he wanted to be low-key first, at least, he hoped that on this weekend date, the love between Kaguya and Shirogane could bloom so that Kaguya would lose her interest in him and give all of her love and attention to Shirogane. More importantly, with Kaguya's excessive nature, especially after yesterday, he didn't want to test her nature. It wasn't that he thought she would monitor him, but in this era of information, it was easy to get, especially through social media, many things could happen, especially when many people had a lot of free time in their lives. If there was something fortunate, it was the fact that when someone took a picture or video with their phone in this country, it was impossible for them to hide the sound and would quickly be noticed, so he knew that he was fine. Still, he might be thinking too much, but should he also start to learn martial arts? If he remembered well, there was a Muay Thai lesson in the gym, and it wouldn't hurt to learn it. But then again, in the modern world, having money and a weapon should be more useful, he thought, as people would cower in fear when they saw someone holding a knife or a gun, or people would become obedient dogs as long as it was for money. Ishigami had just gotten a girlfriend, so why should he do something strange? Moreover, he wasn't someone who would hurt his girlfriend or the people who had cared for him just to get to know a few cute girls who weren't even the parts of heroines in the story. Still, if those cute girls didn't study nearby, then his answer might be different, he thought. Regardless, he should remember more sutras so it could help him to throw away all of his worldly desires, helping him to calm down from the heat that came from his body. At the same time, knowing that he had only 10 years in this world, he needed to learn as much as possible before he went to another world so that way, in case he was transferred into an unfavorable character, he didn't give up and didn't have to do something that would hurt those who cared about him. As he thought so, he entered the school and saw Aino, who was full of sweat, walking somewhere as she dragged something heavy in a certain direction. Letting out a helpless sigh, he walked toward her, wondering how someone could be so stubborn as a mule. Sometimes, I just write whatever I think of, so be patient, okay? By the way, just in case he goes to another world, which worlds do you want him to be in? Yusuga no Sora? Yahari or no Seishun? Kiss X Sis? Kaikanzumi na Kimitu, Kaikan 0 na or Ga, Otsuki Isuru Hanashi? Uzaki-chan? Rental Kanajo? Well, you can write what you think is good here. Chapter 32, Sweet Yet Bitter. Carrying a heavy box over her petite arms, Aino was full of sweat, yet her face was as stubborn as ever. There was no thought of giving up on her face, and she also didn't even ask anyone to ask for help. Her expression clearly told everyone that even if she had to do this alone, she didn't care and would do everything until she finished. Despite her determination, the weight of the box was taking its toll, leaving her breathless and weary. Yet, in a moment she never anticipated, a glimmer of kindness unexpectedly found its way to her. Aino. Hey! Aino turned and saw Ishigami walking toward her, but naturally, she didn't think that he came with a good intention. What? I am busy. Go away if you want to bother me. More importantly, when she thought about how close and chummy Ishigami and Tsubame had been yesterday, her stomach churned, and her heart felt tight, feeling so uncomfortable. Was it love? Was she jealous? No, she just simply felt annoyed that her enemy could be so close to a gentle senior. Yes, that was it. This was what she thought, and due to that, she also didn't think that Ishigami came with good intentions, and as expected. Hold my bag. Ha! Not only was she annoyed by the feelings in her heart, but she was also so exhausted after moving a few heavy boxes from one place to another, so her anger was at the maximum level. Only. Ishigami took the heavy box from her hands naturally, then put his bag in her hands. Where should I bring this? Aino blinked her eyes as she stared at him. Aino, we might be late if we're not in a hurry, you know? Even if you are a good student, there is also a limit to me using you as an excuse for our lateness. Aino felt her face was a little hot, but fortunately, Ishigami's bag could make a good cover for her expression. It's to the warehouse near the field. Okay. They didn't waste their time and walked toward the warehouse together, but then, Aino couldn't help but peek a glance at him. Even though he appeared thin, she could tell that he was rather strong, especially when he held that heavy box with ease, and she could see his arms were different from hers, manly, especially with some veins that were visible on the back of his hands and wrist. What do you mean? You have been staring at me. If you want to ask something, then ask. Well, I'm just surprised that you are strong. Aino felt a bit embarrassed to praise him, so she added a few spicy words to hide her embarrassment. You are so thin like a bean sprout before, after all. Bean sprouts are a bit too much, right? Glancing at her petite body, Ishigami felt that she was worse than him in terms of nutrients, but he kept quiet since it wasn't manly to mock a girl's insecurity. Did you start a sport again? The two of them had known each other for so long, so naturally, she knew that he joined a football club in the past, and she thought that he joined something similar. Yup. What is it? I joined a gym. Gym? Hey? Really? The place to build muscle. Aino was dumbfounded and couldn't imagine the otaku who always spent his time playing a game would join a gym. Is it so weird? It's weird. While she felt uncomfortable, she couldn't help but say, was it because of Tsubame-senpai? Ishigami glanced at Aino strangely and asked, why did you think so? I mean, I can't think of any other reason than because you have fallen for her, after all. If Ishigami didn't fall in love, then would he do all of this? Yet, while Aino felt happy about his improvement and his willingness to change, she felt bitter since the reason why he did all of that wasn't because of. Wait, why is it like I like him? Aino felt her face hot before she shook her head furiously, causing her two loose pigtails to sway left and right. What's wrong? Is my bag heavy? No, no. It isn't heavy. It is rather light. When Aino said this, she lifted Ishigami's bag up and down, feeling strange how light it was. Did you even put books inside? No, I left all of them on my table. There was no homework, and even if there was, he could just bring some and leave most of his books on his table so his bag could be filled with something else. Is that something you should say to me who is a public morals committee member? Aino was speechless and said, aren't you afraid that I will confiscate all of your games? Don't Aino. I have helped you, right? I will let you go this time. Thanks. Watching his smile, Aino looked away, feeling her face was hot again, but then, you should work harder since if you want to get Tsubame-senpai's heart. After she said those words, she felt regret and intense bitterness. Their previous conversation made her recall the time during their middle school when the two often stayed together, talking softly when no one was around, but in the end, she ruined everything by asking him this question. Do you think I like her? Ishigami asked weirdly. Aren't you? I am not. Don't lie. While she said so, her face was strangely excited by his answer. I am not. Ishigami shook his head and said, you know that I helped her before, right? She just wanted to repay me by helping me study. Really? That's all. It is. Ishigami nodded calmly and asked, she might appear like that, but she is ranked 7th in the entire grade, and she is also good at teaching, so why should I refuse her help? I wonder. What do you mean? Ishigami looked at Aino strangely. I mean, you must be thinking that you are lucky to have a gentle and beautiful senior to teach you, right? Well, yes. That's it. Aino had an expression of as expected and said, with such a beautiful senior, how can you focus on study? You must be thinking, something lewd. Something lewd. Ishigami looked at Aino with a speechless expression. While it was true that he expressed himself as a monkey at a heat, he wouldn't do something that would make him enter jail or others to disgust him, okay? He didn't want to die socially or trouble his parents, after all. Such as. Still, he couldn't help but wish to tease Aino. Don't make me say it. Aino was furious, her face was so red, and she felt that she was being teased. You are the one who started it, right? Why did you get embarrassed now? That's. Aino's eyes were dodging, but she felt a little bit annoyed by his calm response. While she lost her calm, he was watching her amusingly like a human who watched an otter in the zoo. Anyway, if you don't have such a thought, prove me. Prove? How? Aino thought for a while, then said, how about you try to get into the top 10? No, top 50 on the next midterm exam. She felt it was a bit hard for him to enter the top 10, so she reduced her requirements. Regardless of her spunky and prickly attitude toward him, she was still soft toward him. No, don't reduce it. I will try to get into the top 10. Hey? Really? Are you sure? Aino was surprised by his bold answer. Yet. Ishigami nodded, then said, but if I do, can I have a request from you? Our request? Aino's head was filled with many unhealthy thoughts that usually happened in the manga and novels that she had confiscated from the students in this school, but then, she gritted her teeth and nodded. Okay. If you can reach the top 10, then I will grant you any request. Really? Ishigami was surprised and asked, any kind? Any kind? Okay, you said that. Don't take it back when I really reach the top 10. Say that when you get to the top 10. Okay, okay. Ishigami nodded, then asked, by the way, if I ask you to help me study, is that okay? You sure have thick skin, but I don't mind. Thanks, Aino. But it won't be unfair for me if I don't get any punishment, so if I can't do it, you can have to make a single request from me. Hey? Really? Aino was stunned but also secretly felt happy. No, perverted request, okay. I won't ask something like that. Aino's face flushed red, thinking this guy was as bad as ever, but when she looked at him for a while, she couldn't help but ask, by the way, Ishigami. Have you thought of cutting your hair in buzz-cut? Ha! As they bickered, someone suddenly came. Aino, sorry for being late. I have something to do earlier. Ah, Koba-chan. Aino was surprised, but then she nodded. It's fine. You are also busy, right? No, I will help you. Ozaragi shook her head and asked, have you moved all of those things away? Not yet. We have just moved some. Aino looked at Ishigami with a bit of hesitation, then said, but Ishigami is rather strong, so he can move a lot of boxes at once. Are you going to work me like a cow? Why not? Just think of it as a cost of me teaching you. Aino somehow felt happy when she saw his speechless expression. Let me help. It will be faster that way, Ozaragi said calmly. Oh, okay. Still, Ozaragi's strength also wasn't much different from Aino's, so she couldn't lift the box. Are you okay, Koba-chan? Aino asked worriedly. It's fine. As Ozaragi said so, a bead of sweat formed on her smooth forehead and then trickled down into her soft cheek, slender neck, and round collarbone. Ishigami quickly looked up, thinking that he should ask whether there was a Buddha Sutra in the library Ozaragi, but before he asked, his vision turned dark, and a familiar feeling was felt on the back of his head. Try to guess who I am. Chapter 33, Under the Skirts. The softness on his back, the sweet scent, and the warm hands that covered his eyes gently. Even if Ishigami didn't turn, he could tell who was the person behind him, but unlike before, when he pretended to be startled, acting like he was scared, rubbing his face against her firm yet soft breasts, he directly guessed who the person who covered his eyes was. Senpai, don't surprise me like this. Phew. As Tsubame let go of her hands, she looked at him with a curious gaze and asked, so you could tell right away it was me? This question was a trap, he thought. Even though it was something that happened yesterday. There was no doubt that this question was a trap from Tsubame, who was still vengeful of having her breasts being played by Ishigami. As a gentle senior, shouldn't she forgive him already? Yet, Ishigami wouldn't be trapped by this lowly trap, and his pure image definitely couldn't be tarnished. You did that 3 times. If I can't guess who you are, then I am an idiot, Tsubame-senpai. Still, while he enjoyed the intimate exchange, he hoped that Tsubame wouldn't be so close to him since it was so damn hard to control his monkey-like body. Well, that's true. Tsubame decided to believe Ishigami this time since she also knew that she was the only one who would do such a stupid thing. Except for Fujiwara-san. Tsubame couldn't help but think about the name of this girl, who came out from Ishigami's mouth for the first time. Naturally, she knew Fujiwara Chika as Chika came from a famous politician family, and with how extrovert she was, except for those loners, who usually stayed by themselves and didn't even have a friend, she knew most of the people in this school, including the 2 girls before her. Good morning, Aino-chan, Koba-chan. Good morning, Tsubame-senpai. Aino had a complicated expression when they saw Tsubame, who appeared so intimate with Ishigami. After all, was it normal for a beautiful girl like her to do such excessive skinship to the opposite gender like Ishigami? Frankly, for the 2 opposite genders to touch each other unless there was an accident or the 2 had a certain connection between them, the thought of touching each other never existed, especially for the girls. Even for people who dated each other, the act of holding hands was also quite hard to do, so when Aino saw Tsubame put her hands on Ishigami's eyes, acting like a mischievous senior, even if Ishigami told them that nothing happened between them, it was hard for Aino to believe it. Good morning. Yet, strangely enough, Kobachi was calm as if Tsubame's appearance. Regardless, the 2 of them knew that Tsubame was a gentle and kind senior as the 2 had been helped by Tsubame, so even if Ishigami fell for Tsubame, they felt that it would be okay. Unfortunately, Kobachi became gloomy once again when she thought of yesterday. What are you all doing here? Tsubame asked curiously. When she arrived at the school, she saw the 3 walking somewhere and couldn't help but follow them, and did her little prank on Ishigami. I am helping Aino to move those things. Ishigami looked at the several boxes before him, then looked at Aino. Now, you mention it, what are those? Aino was speechless, then said with a sigh, they are items that have been confiscated by the Public Morals Committee. Where are the others then? Ishigami asked with doubt since if all of them were confiscated by the Public Morals Committee, shouldn't the other members help? After all, unlike the Student Council, which only had a few members, he remembered that there were a lot of members of the Public Morals Committee. No one is coming. I did this on my own initiative, Aino said straightforwardly. Ishigami and Tsubame. While Ishigami was speechless, he looked at Kobachi, who nodded, then sighed inwardly, thinking that Aino really had never changed. Still, as he looked at the several boxes before him, he became curious. Aino, what is inside? When this question fell, Tsubame also became curious. Now, I am also curious. There are a lot of things, but most of them are something that can't be brought to the school. While Aino felt uncomfortable, watching how Tsubame squatted so naturally by Ishigami's side, she explained what was kept inside those boxes as she hesitated whether she should squat on Ishigami's other side, too. Still, during that hesitation, Ishigami asked, "Can I open one?" "Sure, why not?" As Ishigami had helped her, Aino didn't mind following his whim. If it was someone else, she would scold them and directly tell them not to waste her time. "Thanks." Aino felt conflicted and couldn't look straight at him, but during that moment, Kobachi squatted on Ishigami's other side and said, "Hurry up and open it. Aren't you the Public Moral Committee members? You should have seen them, right?" "No, they are something that was confiscated last year by our senior." "Oh." Hearing that, Ishigami was surprised. If those boxes were kept from last year, then shouldn't they be full of dust? Still, he noticed dust on Aino's skirt, thinking that she must have cleaned all of them up before she moved them to another place, which made him think that this girl was really diligent. But then again, if it was so dirty, it would be troublesome to move them when those boxes were covered in dust, considering the color of their uniform was black. "Hey, don't waste time. Do you want to open it or not?" Aino somehow got prickly again, especially when she saw Ishigami was sandwiched by Tsubame and Kobachi. "Your skirt is dirty. There is dust there." "Ah." Aino quickly noticed the dust on her skirt, trying to clean it up by tapping it with her hands. "Let me help, Aino. Don't move." Whether Tsubame or Kobachi stood up and helped Aino to clean up her skirt from the dust. While Ishigami also wanted to help, he knew that it wasn't appropriate for him to do so since an act to help her required him to touch her small and soft buttocks with his large hand. Still, when he squatted, he saw the butts of the 3 girls pointed toward his direction. The uniform of the Shuchiin Academy was designed in a way as not to arouse the sexual desire of the opposite gender. Instead of the usual short skirt that made the female students show their white, smooth legs, they designed it at the right length and not so tight that it would show the shape of their bodies. Yet, when they crouched, the fabric of their uniform stretched and became tight, showing the womanly shape of the 3 beautiful girls that were hidden under the uniform. Their skirt was also pulled up, showing the whiteness of their smooth thighs. Ishigami rooted in a place and watched the legs of 3 girls. This might be a perverted act, but in front of 3 girls who showed him a lot of their skin, it was hard for him to control the body of a young man like this, especially when it was brimming with energy. More importantly, the 3 girls had their own charms, such as Aino's slender and graceful legs, Kobachi's smooth and ideal legs, and also Tsubame's firm yet plump thighs. All of them were present before his eyes, and this made his body uncomfortable. Fortunately, he squatted down so he could reduce his healthy blood circulation so it wouldn't move toward his lower body. Still, if there was something that he was grateful for, he could look away, he could escape from the demon of his mind, and they didn't seem to notice him take a peek at their legs. "I need to calm myself." Ishigami sighed helplessly, wondering why it was so damn hard to control the body of a young man. "You haven't opened the box yet, Yukun?" Tsubame asked after she helped Aino to clean up her skirt. "Yukun?" Aino looked at Tsubame with a frown. "Not yet. I will open it now." Hearing that, the 3 of them were also curious, moving closer to see what was kept inside the box, and waited for Ishigami to open the box, but as he opened the box, 4x. They didn't know what to say. Chapter 34, Cherish. Beneath the cherry blossom, there is a corpse. If someone were familiar with the literature of this country, they would know that this was the beginning of Motojiro Keiji's short story, Beneath the Cherry Trees. Yet, fortunately, what was hidden under the box wasn't something as scary as a corpse. Instead, what was hidden under the box was a box, to be exact. A lonely, big-breasted young housewife who wishes to be comforted. Ishigami murmured the title of the magazine as he saw the picture on the cover of the magazine that pictured a melting gaze of a beautiful and sexy housewife. Her clothes might appear demure and ordinary, yet they were strangely tight, showing the womanly shape of the body that could only be seen on a housewife. The skirt was so short that it showed plump, white, soft thighs. In that picture, it was clear that the housewife had a blazing desire, a scorching hot body that wished to be comforted as her husband had neglected her, thinking of her as nothing yet as a maid in the house. Still, in that picture, she was a woman, a charming one that was ready to be. Ishigami squeezed his thighs hard, but at the same time, he was curious, so he opened the magazine softly, trying to learn the wonderful culture of this country. While he wasn't sure why those husbands neglected their beautiful wives, he didn't mind helping them to comfort their wives, he thought. Yet, Tsubame, Aino, and Kobachi were stunned. As they never expected, the one that was kept inside the box was porn. A housewife type, too. Their faces flushed red, watching the magazine before them. More importantly, this bastard opened the magazine calmly. Yukun. Ishigami. However, Kobachi was calm and just watched Ishigami, wondering what he would do. Still, under the pressure of 3 girls, Ishigami, who had opened the magazine, suddenly got angry. Outrageous! How shameless! How could those seniors bring this type of book? Everyone! I have to report this to Kaiku. Ishigami appeared indignant, clearly disgusted by those seniors who brought these types of books. You don't have to worry, Aino. I will make sure to erase this box. By the way, you don't have to thank me. This is my duty as a student council member. As he thought so, he couldn't help but think about the stacks of magazines inside this box. They were all treasures, no, they were all trash that made the young generation become idiots due to lust. As a member of the student council, he couldn't just close his eyes, pretending that they didn't exist. As a student council member, it was his duty to remove them. As for Shirogane, Ishigami was sure that Shirogane would be moved by his dedication. So, as his determination was set, he was ready to dispose of the box, only he met resistance from the three. "No, it's okay. I will keep it," Aino said as she stared at Ishigami speechlessly, but her eyes were as sharp as ever, ready to take away the box forcefully if she had to do. "Yeah, just leave this box to Aino-chan, you-kun." Sub-aim nodded hurriedly. "Or do you want to keep all of them yourselves, Ishigami?" Kobachi asked with a meaningful gaze. Under the gazes of the three, Ishigami took a deep breath and said righteously, "Please make sure that those things won't be seen by anyone again, Aino." "You don't have to worry about that." Aino nodded and agreed with Ishigami's statement, but her eyes were staring at him with doubt and suspicion. However, as Ishigami showed a righteous expression, his heart sighed helplessly, and he was so glad that his acting skills were at level 4, comparable to those of top actors who were known as the best or politicians who deceived their voters. Still, while he was disappointed since his act couldn't get him that box that was filled with porn magazines, he decided to give up since he knew that if he really dared to read them, the desire on his body would be overflowing, and it would be impossible to stop, so while it was sad, he knew that this was for the best. "Are you disappointed, Ishigami?" Kobachi suddenly asked, causing Aino and Sub-aim to look at Ishigami at the same time. "No, I am not. There is dust on my eyes, and please don't say something that will cause a misunderstanding to others." For the first time, Ishigami learned that Kobachi wasn't as good a girl as he thought he was. Pervert. However, Aino somehow recalled the time Ishigami wiped her tears, caressing her cheek softly with his hand as his eyes stared into her thin, cherry lips. He might appear indignant by the porn magazines, but she knew that this guy was a big pervert. Yet, it was good that he was a pervert. Well, you-kun is a boy, after all. Regardless, Sub-aim was the one who had the most normal reaction since she felt that it was normal for Ishigami to have an interest in those types of books, but she hoped that he would have a normal interest instead of having a housewife fetish. Okay. Enough of this. Let's just finish moving the boxes, or else we will be late." Ishigami knew that he didn't have an advantage over the three. If the three decided to tease him at the same time, then he could only succumb, letting his body and heart be ravaged, so he changed their focus. As expected, the three knew what they had to do, especially when they might be late. However, while he could move those boxes with ease, it was different with Sub-aim, Aino, and Kobachi, as their physical ability wasn't that strong, so they needed help, but fortunately, soon, another senior came to help them. "Thank you, senpai. I will treat you to a protein shake at the gym later." "It's fine. You don't have to worry about that." The one who helped them was Kazeno, the third-year senior at their school and Ishigami's friend at the nearby gym. The two of them often met each other as they went to train together and studied at the same school. Unlike Ishigami, Kazeno's build was rather thick, showing his perseverance and a slight obsession with building muscle. "Okay, I won't treat you. Everyone. I was just joking." Kazeno looked at his juniors helplessly, feeling a bit of regret for helping him, but then again, he didn't really feel that sad, especially when he saw one of the cute girls among the three. Kobachi noticed Kazeno's gaze, but she didn't say anything since she knew that she was beautiful, so she was used to being stared at by others. Nevertheless, fortunately, Sub-aim and Kazeno knew each other, so there was no need for Ishigami to work as a lubricant in case there was an awkwardness among them. "You-kun, are you going to the same gym as Kazeno?" "Yes, I happened to meet senpai there." "You aren't doing something strange in the gym, right?" Still watching Ishigami and Sub-aim, who talked to each other closely, Aino couldn't help but interrupt. "Something strange? Can you give me an example, Aino?" "Pervert." Aino blushed, and she knew that this guy clearly teased her. Sub-aim watched their interaction, then asked, "You two are rather close." "Ha! Who is close to him?" Aino blushed and quickly refuted, feeling embarrassed, but at the same time, she felt regret for her outburst and quick denial. "We just happen to know each other for quite a while." Still, unlike Aino, Ishigami answered this question calmly. "Ah, I see." Sub-aim nodded with a gentle smile and asked, "But are you sure that you go to the gym, Yu-chan? You don't seem full of muscles." When she said so, she looked at him up and down and even rubbed his arm. While Ishigami felt speechless by how touchy Sub-aim was, he said helplessly, "I have just joined for less than a week." In other words, how could she expect him to have a muscular body within that span of time? He. Sub-aim smiled and apologized. Sorry. Still, Aino somehow didn't feel comfortable and quickly interrupted their conversation again. As the three talked to each other, Kobachi didn't say anything and just silently observed them. They are rather close. As Kobachi answered him, Kazuno became excited and continued to talk with her. But it is good that Sub-aim has become cheerful. They suit each other well. After that, Kobachi didn't say anything and just silently moved those boxes to another place along with everyone. Fortunately, soon, the other members of the Public Moral Committee also came and helped them, and as everyone worked, they soon finished their jobs. See you later, Yu-chan. Let's study again later. See you later. As their grades were different, naturally, Sub-aim had to part away from Ishigami, but then, she felt happy and excited, thinking about the evening when she taught him again. It's unexpected that you know him, Sub-aim. As they were in the same grade, Kazuno walked with Sub-aim. Yes, he helped me before. Sub-aim smiled sweetly and said, it is also fun to be with him. Are you going to date him? Kazuno couldn't help but ask, which stunned Sub-aim. Sorry for reminding you of him. Kazuno quickly apologized, realizing that he had reminded Sub-aim of her uncomfortable past. No, it's fine. You don't have to worry. While Sub-aim said so, her heart felt uncomfortable, thinking of her relationship with her past boyfriend. Is that so? I am glad. Kazuno smiled, then said, but if you are really interested in him, you should move fast since he is rather popular and he might have a girlfriend soon. Hey! Sub-aim was stunned as she had never thought about this possibility. No, she had expected this, but she closed her eyes, pretending not to realize the possibility that might exist in the future. Their meeting might be short, but when she thought that she might not be able to talk with him like now, she didn't want it, yet when she thought about how a relationship would turn out when one became a boyfriend and a girlfriend, she wasn't ready. As Sub-aim was vexed by her feelings, Aino stared at Ishigami with a complicated gaze, thinking at how close he was to Sub-aim. If they are dating. If they were dating, then. What's wrong, Aino? Kobachi asked. Nothing. Aino quickly shook her head, then noticed Ishigami glanced at her, which made her glare at him. Ishigami only rolled his eyes and looked away from this prickly girl. Aino opened her thin lips slightly, then closed them again, feeling an intense regret for not being able to be honest with herself. Deep inside her heart, she knew what she wanted, but she just couldn't be honest with her feelings. Say, Koba-chan. Do you think Ishigami will date Sub-aim senpai? While Aino wanted to deny it, she could tell that the two of them fitted together, and she felt his chance to get Sub-aim as a girlfriend was higher than others imagined. No. Aino was dumbfounded by Kobachi's straightforward answer. Why? Well. Kobachi didn't need to answer since when they arrived at the class, someone hugged Ishigami tightly. You. Watching Onodera hug Ishigami tightly, Aino opened her mouth and eyes wide. He has a girlfriend now. Calm before the storm. Chapter 35, Goddess of Fortune is on his side. We can't eat lunch together. It can't be helped. I have something to do in the student council later. Watching Onodera pout, Ishigami smiled softly and caressed her bangs softly. Be patient. We will also go on a date tomorrow, right? Oh, so you didn't forget. Onodera smiled as she asked. Of course not. Shaking his head, Ishigami said, don't forget to treat me tomorrow. Bastard. It's all food that you can think of. Well. I am also thinking about something else, though. As he said so, Onodera noticed his gaze on her lips, which made her shy and blush, thinking about the kiss they exchanged. It might be a little fast, yet she didn't regret it and even loved the feeling of having their lips pressed against each other. Pervert. I am not. Still, Ishigami also felt reluctant to leave the student council directly, so he thought for a while and said, follow me for a while. Where are we going? While Onodera was confused, it was good that she could stay with him for a little longer. As the two left, everyone stared at them in a daze. Dating? When? How could Ishigami and Onodera date each other? Those questions kept ringing in their heads, and all of them were dumbfounded as they didn't expect them to date each other, considering their previous relationship. Ishigami's reputation might have cleared up, but then, how came he made a girlfriend so quickly? While many guys were happy, they also felt confused, especially those who were single. The girls, on the other hand, thought that Onodera had moved so fast, and some girls were curious as to why she had dated Ishigami. Well, many had to admit he was cute, though. Yet, Kobachi just sat in silence, staring at Aino, who was still in disbelief and shocked as her body turned grey for some reason. If it was her usual, she might have stood up and comforted Aino, but now? I'm prepared for this, but it's harder than I thought. On the other hand, Ishigami hugged Onodera in his arms, hidden under the stairs. Hugging was nice, he thought. Not only did she smell nice, but her body was also soft and warm. More importantly, this also eased his mind as he was about to go to the student council. When he thought about the two girls on the student council, he felt exhausted for some reason, but he knew that he had to clear up everything, or else he was afraid that his family might move away from this country. Ishigami. Onodera blushed, thinking that Ishigami was so straightforward, but she didn't hate this part of him, and she even clung to him as if it felt good to hug him. Still, Ishigami let her go first, then said, I am prepared now. I will see you later. Wait. I haven't gotten enough yet. Come then. Watching Ishigami open his arms wide, Onodera jumped directly into his embrace and clung to him. She was disappointed since she couldn't spend lunch with him, but with this, she was comforted, she thought. How about a kiss? When she thought so, they heard a voice from nearby. Ah! The two turned and saw a cute girl with short brown hair that was tied up in short pigtails with bangs covering her forehead. The girl blushed and was stunned when she saw the two hug each other. Onodera panicked, but Ishigami held her hand and said, Excuse us. After he said so, he led his girlfriend to leave, leaving the girl, who was still stunned. While Onodera was embarrassed, she looked at his back with a sweet smile, thinking that he wasn't as tsundere as she thought. But I want a kiss. Onodera thought, but she was afraid her boyfriend would see her as a lewd girl. Still. How shameless. The girl couldn't help but say when she thought about what Ishigami and Onodera did under the stairs. At the same time, she also felt quite jealous, thinking it might be wonderful if she could embrace the guy she liked as Onodera did to Ishigami. As she thought so, Ishigami had already left Onodera since he had to go to the student council to fix everything. He had a girlfriend now, and he knew that sooner or later, everyone would know about it. While it was a bit narcissistic, he knew that he was a bit famous now. He was no longer that misfit and those who were ignored were on the side. Instead, he had become a proper normie. Having a girlfriend, a good-looking face, was a member of a student council, and was also a second rich generation. If there was a flaw, then it would be his horrible grade, but he worked hard to fix it. His life was good now, and during his 10 years of stay in this world, he didn't intend to mess up. As for Onodera, if, in the long run, they fit each other, then there was no need for him to think too much and just enjoy their relationship since he knew how necessary it was for him to have a girlfriend, especially when the heat on his lower body was almost impossible to stop. Fortunately, the thought of meeting Kaguya on the student council made him limp, so he hadn't thought of anything perverted before, but if it was a normal situation, he might try to avoid hugging Onodera since he knew well what kind of reaction his body would do. Senpai. Thinking about what had happened between him and Kaguya yesterday, he sighed helplessly, and he really hoped that nothing really would happen between them and that she would continue to love Shirogane. Still, when he was about to enter the student council, the door was opened, and someone suddenly came out. 2x. The two were startled and couldn't help but look at each other for a moment. Please. Ishigami quickly woke up and made way for the male student who was about to leave the room. Thank you. The male student nodded with a shy smile, then quickly left as if he was embarrassed. Ishigami looked at the male student with a strange expression and entered the room. Ishigami. Shirogane, who was inside, quickly noticed Ishigami. Was that your friend, Kaiku? Yes. Shirogane nodded, then felt a bit embarrassed as he had used the room for private use. He asked for my advice before. Oh. Ishigami nodded, but he didn't continue to ask since he thought that it might be a secret between the two. Shirogane might have noticed Ishigami's hesitation, so he said, It isn't something like a secret, though. There is a girl that he is interested in, and he asked me how to confess to her. I see. Frankly, Ishigami didn't care much, but as Shirogane had taken the initiative to explain it to him, he had to continue to ask. So am I a bother then? No, no. It's fine. It isn't something so serious anyway, but... I hope that he can be successful at confessing to the girl he likes. As Shirogane said so, he showed a gentle and kind smile, hoping that his friend could really succeed in his confession. I hope so, too. While Ishigami said so, he felt a little guilty, but as nothing would happen anymore between him and Kaguya, he knew that there was no need for him to think this way. He had decided to support the love between Shirogane and Kaguya, so it was better for him not to think about a messy thing, especially when he had a girlfriend already. By the way, what about you, Ishigami? Ishigami didn't expect Shirogane to suddenly press forward with a question. You have someone you like, right? How about I give you some advice or two? It was impossible for Shirogane to forget their previous conversation when Ishigami told him and Kaguya that he had someone he liked and asked the two for advice, even asking them to have a dating plan trial so they could give their input to him. Shirogane was happy, whether it was with Ishigami's unintentional help to go on a date with Shinomiya or when he asked for advice on clothes. For Ishigami, who had given him so much help, Shirogane wanted to become a cupid for his junior. Watching the anticipation on Shirogane's face, Ishigami fell in silence, but he also understood Shirogane's enthusiasm as he had been lying that he was in love with someone to make him go on a date with Kaguya. Then, should he say that he has a girlfriend now? It would be stupid to do so, since if he dared to do so, then his lie would be exposed, and by then, Shirogane might press him why he asked Shirogane to go on a date with Kaguya, but fortunately, the goddess of fortune was on his side. Wait a moment, Kaiku. Shirogane was confused by Ishigami's sudden action, who told him to be quiet, but then he saw Ishigami walk toward the door and pull it. 2x. Suddenly, two people fell at the same time. 4x. Ishigami sighed and asked, what are you doing, senpai? Hehe. 2x. Kaguya and Chika could only laugh awkwardly as they had been discovered. By the way, I have realized that there are so many heroines in the world of Kaguya. Chapter 36, Ishigami loves her, Chika thought. What are you doing, senpai? As Chika thought so, she couldn't help but pursue her lips as she watched Ishigami's helpless expression. This guy might pretend that he didn't have an interest in her, but she could tell what he felt toward her, especially when she thought about his previous conversation with Shirogane. As for how she could make such a conclusion except for the exchanges they shared before she was about to enter the student council, she happened to meet Kaguya, and they happened to stumble upon Shirogane and Ishigami, who talked about the person Ishigami liked. Unfortunately, before Ishigami was able to say it, he found them, so they couldn't hear the end of their conversation. Still, once again, Chika could tell well who the person Ishigami had fallen with. Kaiku, what were you talking about before? Chika knew well that Ishigami's lips were as tight as the vault of the Bank of Japan, and it was impossible to get anything from him, so naturally, she changed her strategy and asked Shirogane, hoping something would come out from Shirogane's lips. No, we were just talking about studying, right, Ishigami? Shirogane wasn't an idiot, and he knew well that if Chika knew Ishigami had fallen to someone, this silly girl would tease his junior. While frankly, Shirogane wasn't sure how Ishigami could escape a few days ago from Chika's claws, the fact that he owed a lot of things to Ishigami also didn't change as Ishigami helped him to go on a date with Kaguya and helped him with his clothes, so he definitely wouldn't let Chika to tease Ishigami. Yes. Ishigami also nodded obediently. Still, watching the play between Ishigami and Shirogane, Chika pouted, thinking that the two were too sly. At the same time, she looked at Ishigami, thinking that this guy was a tsundere. Couldn't you just be honest with your feelings? If so, then she might not mind giving him a chance to chase her. Still, unlike Chika and Shirogane, who were a bit childish, Kaguya felt that she was an adult, so she couldn't help but glance at Ishigami's flat plants. It was quite flat, but when she observed closely, she could see quite a large bulge on the side, which made her face hot. Kaguya wanted to take a peek again, but soon, she felt her face scorching when she saw a hand right in front of his pants and moved as if telling her to look away. I found out. Kaguya didn't dare to look at that place again, or rather, she didn't even dare to face Ishigami. Now, he will think of me as a slut. She cried inwardly, thinking that she had done a stupid thing. Still, the mystery of biology was a curious thing since she didn't expect something to expand into a humongous thing. This also made her unable to help but turn her gaze subconsciously at Shirogana's flat pants before she looked away. What am I thinking? While she wanted to forget about everything, it was hard. The thought of yesterday kept replaying in her head, and she, just, couldn't stop her mind from thinking of doing an act that might hurt the one she loved. No, I have to stop. Ishigami had reminded her, and she was also prepared to give her everything. The two of them wished for happiness for that person, and they had to work hard for it instead of hurting him. Ishigami felt quite helpless, but it was good that Kaguya had stared at Shirogana's pants instead of his pants. He knew what had happened yesterday was impossible to forget, but even so, he hoped she would work hard to forget everything since this was what he did. In the beginning, he had never thought of Kaguya, and he only thought of asking her for help to erase his stigma. While he also helped her set up a date with Shirogane, suddenly, their feelings started to change, and her feelings toward him became something else. Still, this wasn't good, and he knew that he had to stop since no matter what he or Kaguya had to fall for, they couldn't fall for each other. At the same time, while this might be strange, he couldn't help but think about the legend of King Arthur, the legendary British king whose wife was taken by his most loyal knight, Lancelot. King Arthur trusted Lancelot so much, yet in the end, Lancelot fell in love with Guinevere, King Arthur's wife, hurting his king and even causing a catalyst of many man-made disasters in that kingdom. Due to this story, Ishigami knew that while the feeling of being with Kaguya was nice, he knew that when everything was exposed, only regret would linger between them. Love is nice and all, but if that love causes pain that they care about, it is better to stop it, especially when his feeling toward Kaguya is far less than Shirogana's feeling toward Kaguya. Moreover, was this feeling worth fighting for when the price was something they couldn't pay? More importantly, to be honest, he really wasn't ready to face Kaguya's family, especially when she also had a little spy by her side. At the same time, instead of him, he knew that Shirogane would treat Kaguya the best. Still, whether Ishigami or Kaguya, even without saying anything, they knew what to do, and they just did their own jobs without communicating with each other as if everything that had happened between them was just an illusion. Ishigami was fine with it as this was his decision, but Kaguya couldn't help but cast a glance at him from time to time as she bit her lower lip before she looked at Shirogane as she made up her mind. Meanwhile, Chika didn't realize anything and only thought that Ishigami was really tsundere. Online, the two often chatted with each other. Well, it was mostly her who made the initiative, but it couldn't be helped since he was a good partner to talk to. It might have been only a few days since they started, but she thought that her world had really changed when there was someone who could accompany her silliness and joke calmly and maturely. Yet, even if she thought that Ishigami had become quite mature, it didn't change the fact that he was still a virgin. Humph. Acting all shy, as expected of a virgin. Without being dared to confront her to talk about their dating plans on Sunday face to face, if this wasn't a virgin act, then what was it? The weekend was about to start tomorrow, yet he never intended to approach her first and acted as if nothing had happened between them. Still, Chika didn't lose her calm and even held on because she knew that the first one to make the first move would be the loser. However, while she thought so, she often glanced at him from time to time and even pouted. Even when Ishigami worked on his laptop seriously, she even tried to tease him by using the tip of her hair to tickle him. Ishigami. Fujiwara, Ishigami is working seriously, don't tease him. Shirogane, who saw Chika, kept teasing Ishigami, who was working and couldn't help but remind her. As the treasurer of the student council, Ishigami had to work seriously, yet this silly girl kept teasing him, which made Shirogane feel helpless. I am not teasing him. I am working too. Chika looked at Shirogane resentfully, then pouted before looking away. Shirogane. Was his eyes blind? Still, he sighed in relief when he saw Chika didn't tease Ishigami anymore. However, Kaguya, who knew everything, could only shake her head and thought that this might be the best. So, at this moment, it was a rare moment that the four of them were working hard on their own jobs until it was almost time for the lunch break to finish. Still, when Chika was anxious, wondering when Ishigami started to talk with her when she was about to leave, he approached her and said, "Senpai, can we talk for a while?" Finally. Chika tried to stop the smile on her lips, tried to show a doubtful expression, and asked calmly, "What's wrong?" "I have something to discuss with you." "Well, since you asked me, I don't mind spending some of my time with you." Ishigami. "Follow me." Even so, Chika obediently followed Ishigami. Watching this, Kaguya sighed, but she knew that this was for the best. Shinomiya, are you okay? Kaguya was startled and looked at Shirogane, who asked her this question, and naturally, she nodded softly and said, I am fine, Kaiku. Really? If you are not okay, you should rest, Shirogane said worriedly. He could tell that something was wrong with Kaguya, and he thought that her body felt uncomfortable. Well, can you help me to go to the infirmary? I might need a rest there. Okay. This time, Shirogane didn't show a shy or embarrassed expression since, in his mind, all of his attention was on Kaguya, and he was worried about her health. On the other hand, Ishigami brought Chika to a quiet place, without anyone, so they could talk peacefully. So, what's wrong? What do you want to talk about? As Chika asked, she subconsciously twirled the tip of her hair, trying to look away, but her eyes kept looking at him, almost without blinking. Ishigami was a bit nervous, but when he thought that Chika's family power wasn't as powerful as Kaguya's, he knew that he should be okay, but he knew that he really couldn't toy with her, so he had to be truthful. Senpai, I am sorry, but can we cancel our date on Sunday? Hey! Chika was dumbfounded and asked worriedly and curiously, what's wrong? Do you have something to do that day? If there was something that made him ask her to cancel a date with a perfect heroine like her, then it should be because Ishigami had a problem in his family, or did he check a hospital where he caught a terminal disease that he only had a few days of living? As she tried to search for a reason why Ishigami had asked her to cancel their date, she didn't realize how anxious she appeared to be, but out of all of the answers that she had thought of, she had never thought that it would be this answer. No, it's just I have a girlfriend now. Chapter 37, What the heck is happening? Ishigami had thought of many reactions that Chika would show after he said he had a girlfriend, but he didn't think she would be such a silly girl. Are you sick? Chika approached him and put her palm on his forehead as she looked at him worriedly. No, I am not. Still, Chika clearly didn't believe his words and said, yes, you are. It seems that you have acute delusion syndrome. I know a good doctor. You should visit the hospital today to check on your situation. I will accompany you. Senpai, I am serious. While Ishigami appeared helpless, he said those words firmly, but Chika could only look at him in silence for a moment, trying to understand his words clearly. Taking a deep breath, Chika didn't think that Ishigami was sane, so she asked him another question. An illusionary girlfriend? A real one? You mean that waifu? Which anime did you watch, and what heroine is your waifu? No, she exists, and she is my classmate. Chika blinked her eyes and asked, you are not lying. I am not. Ishigami nodded and said helplessly, I really have a girlfriend. Chika fell in silence, lowering her head until she asked, when? When did you start dating? Yesterday. Why? When she asked this question, she subconsciously raised her voice. She confessed to me. Chika looked up and showed a dumbfounded expression. Really? Did she confess to you? Not the other way around. Yes. Ishigami nodded. She confessed to me yesterday, and I accepted her confession. Chika thought that this guy was lying, drunk, or even had acute delusion syndrome, but no matter how many excuses she made, she knew Ishigami had told the truth. Why? Why? What do you mean? Why did you accept her confession? Chika looked at Ishigami and asked, I know that all the females in the first grade treated you like shit before, right? Why did you accept the confession from such a group? She might appear silly and idiotic, but she wasn't stupid, and she knew how horrible the female first-grade students treated Ishigami. In their eyes, before his stigma was erased, he was known as a stalker and was a jumble of negative things, so why should he accept the confession from such a group of girls? Not everyone is like that, after all. While the majority of girls probably treated him like shit, it was different now, and frankly, he just wanted a girlfriend. It didn't matter who they were, as he just wanted to get rewards from the system. It might be shitty of him to do this, considering his motives and all, but those females weren't good people either, so he didn't have much guilt even if he made a move on them. As he had said the first time, the best revenge had never always been the one on the physical, but the one that attacked the heart. While it was a bit cold, his focus had never been on love currently. Love might be wonderful, but he knew that he only had 10 years in this world. While he could probably return to this world and enjoy his time with his loved ones, he wasn't sure how long he would stay. So, instead of a serious relationship that Chika might wish for him, having an easy bitch that was easy to discard was his priority. Ishigami knew that this was bad, but no one knew what would happen in his next world. Ishigami's original specs were quite good, but what would happen if he transmigrated into a strange character? So, once again, while it might be cold, he knew that he should prioritize the improvement as a person. At the same time, he really didn't dare to mess around with Chika, especially when her grandfather was a former prime minister. In the story, her grandfather was kind and doting to her, but he knew for someone to become prime minister, Chika's grandfather's hands were impossible to clean. If this grandfather knew that he messed around with his most loved granddaughter, what would he do? Lastly, the most important thing is that Chika might be silly and often cause him trouble, but Ishigami wouldn't hurt her. So, you accepted her because she was kind. Ishigami thought for a moment, then nodded. Well, yeah. However, frankly, anyone was fine, he thought, and it was just Onodera who confessed to him first. He might not like her that much, especially after she said something so cruel to him on the first day, but he wanted to finish his quest as soon as possible. More importantly, if he left this world with Onodera, he wouldn't feel sad, but he didn't expect Chika's answer to be so cruel. As expected of a virgin, you are so desperate. The two fell in silence, and Chika realized how wrong her words were when she saw Ishigami's shocked expression. Ishigami. No, you are right. Ishigami took a deep breath, thinking that he really had hurt her, but then when he thought about how he seduced her, using her body as a pillow for comfort and even laughing at night, he also understood why she was so angry when he got a girlfriend so suddenly, so he nodded and didn't deny Chika. But thank you, senpai. However, it was good that he could learn her true self today, so there was no need for him to feel guilty anymore. Chika was in a daze when she heard the words thank you from him, and she couldn't help but think about the memories they shared when she sneakily and naughtily came to him from time to time, yet even if she was a little annoyed, he would look at her helplessly, smiled softly and could even counter him softly, but she knew that all of that would disappear today. Goodbye. That word made her snap and reached him subconsciously. Wait. Chika hugged him tightly, stopping him in his tracks. I am sorry, sorry. I didn't mean that. I have said too much. I am sorry, Ishigami. Her voice was panicked and filled with cries, showing how much regret she had for the words she had said previously. When Ishigami told her the truth, her heart was filled with ugliness and negative emotions that she couldn't help but release all of them, blaming him, but then, was it wrong for him to accept another girl's confession? Ishigami had never said that he liked her, and she was the one who was always under the assumption that he loved her. This was what she had always thought, so when everything didn't go her way, she threw a tantrum and blamed him, yet when she realized what she had said, she knew what kind of horrible thing she had said, and she had hurt him. At the same time, she realized her feelings so. Ishigami also quickly realized what Chika was about to do. Stop. Don't say it. I like you, Ishigami. His lips twitched, and he felt quite helpless, wondering why they couldn't control their emotions. Not only Onodera but also Chika and Kaguya were similar, which made him helpless. Frankly, what they felt wasn't love, but he felt that it should be lust, an adrenaline rush that made them do something out of logic. More importantly, they were female, an existence that moved on their emotions instead of their logic, so sometimes, while it was unthinkable, many things were possible. At the same time, there was a saying, it was better to regret after doing it than regret not doing anything. Chika was probably like that. While Ishigami wasn't sure what to do, fortunately, Chika didn't let him come to a conclusion about her confession. I know that I have troubled you, especially when you have a girlfriend now, and I don't expect your answer either. Then, why? Why did you confess, then? Because. Chika looked at Ishigami and said, because I don't want any regrets. I have fun with you, and I don't want to lose it, so I confess to you. It might be even more confusing at what to do with you, though. You are right. However, this was far better than the thought of him leaving after he said goodbye to her, at least, there was still a leeway to fix their relationship, she thought. Still, watching her beautiful face and her sweet scent that invaded his nasal cavity, Ishigami hesitated for a while before he sighed helplessly and decided to make a hard decision. Thank you for your confession, senpai. I am happy, but... Wait. I don't want to listen. Stop your mouth. I never said that I wanted to date you. I just want you to know my feelings. It was like her instinct, and she could tell that Ishigami would treat her as a good person and reject her softly. While she had expected this, she had to admit that it was too painful for her to hear. Is that all? Ishigami looked at Chika with doubt, since he knew that even if someone's confession was rejected, they would still have a lingering hope within their hearts, hoping for room for a comeback to gain the hearts of their loved ones. Chika took a deep breath, used her brilliant mind, and said, "Yes, nothing changes. I will be the detective of love, Chika Fujiwara, and you are my virgin junior, Ishigami Yu." Ishigami. As a virgin, I am sure that you are nervous about having a first girlfriend, but you don't have to worry that I am here. I will make sure that your love is successful, so don't forget to come to our date on Sunday. I will be your coach, so you don't mess up. Don't be late. I will wait for you. After she said so, Chika quickly left as if running away without waiting for his response, wiping her reddened eyes as she made up her mind about what to do. Ishigami took a deep breath and looked at the cloudless blue sky. It was beautiful, but there was one question on his mind. What the heck is happening? Chapter 38, When you get a girlfriend, you will become popular. I will come to the library later after I finish my club. Okay. Ishigami nodded at Onodera and said, "Good luck with your club." At the same time, watching his cute girlfriend, glancing at her smooth, white legs and her round, tight buttocks, made his body feel hot. Still, a high school love should be pure, filled with bitter yet sweet memories, but why did he always look at his girlfriend with a lustful gaze? He was like a beast, a monster, something that couldn't be controlled. While it was true that in the beginning, he wanted revenge on her, she made fun of him so blatantly in the middle of class, but she repented and even became his girlfriend. More importantly, they shared each other's first kiss and allowed him to finish his quest. At this moment, he should think of her as the dearest girl, the one in his heart, yet there was this part of him that made him wish to make her shake wildly like an animal as she cried lewdly in abandon. He might have hesitated and acted like a gentleman when he faced Kaguya and Chika, but he knew himself well enough to react that way because he had Onodera. If Onodera wasn't around, then he could only succumb to his lust and desire, becoming evil and embarking on his nature as a monster. At the same time, while it was a bit shameful, he knew that the background of Kaguya and Chika wasn't something that he could provoke. Once again, he was just a second son of the toy company, how dare he provoke those two giants? Watching his sincere expression and obliviousness to his thoughts, Onodera nodded with a sweet smile, and at the same time, she wondered whether she was a perverted girl who wanted him to kiss her. She knew that it might be weird, but whenever she thought of him, her face would flush red, and her body would become giddy. When she was held by him tightly, and when his lips were taken in such a manly way, she felt her lower body become wet and bloom like flower petals, seemingly ready to accept him inside. Yet, how long had their relationship? They had just started their relationship yesterday, and while he kissed her lips to ease her doubt, was he ready for the next step? She didn't want to be seen as a slut. Still, when she thought of last night when she squeezed her pillow tightly on her thighs and moved her waist back and forth, rubbing the surface of her precious place against a rough object, she had become a lewd woman. So, she knew that while she wanted to study with him, she had to join her lacrosse club, working hard and spending up all of her energy so she wouldn't think something messy. However, when their hands held each other, they could feel they were hot, sticky, and it was kind of lewd. Their fingers were entangled, and their palms were pressed against each other, feeling the overflowing desire that was felt by each other. At the same time, Onodera realized that even if they dated, Ishigami was as tsundere as ever, considering how lascivious he was, yet he appeared like a polite, gentle young man, which made her wish to pull him somewhere so he could show what he wanted to do with her. Unfortunately, this place was a classroom, so it was natural for their classmates to see them. "Hey, you can't do something so shameless inside the class." Aino pressed forward and stopped their intimate gesture. Aino. While Onodera might have a good relationship with everyone, she naturally felt unhappy when she was interrupted like this. More importantly, what did they do? They just held each other's hands, feeling reluctant to part. Was it wrong? Still, her face was a little red since she knew well that she had been thinking something perverted with her boyfriend, but fortunately, she wore light makeup so that blush wasn't seen. However, Ishigami was too lazy to fight, knowing Aino's bull-like personality, it was meaningless to fight, so he patted Onodera's soft buttocks and said, go to your club. I will wait at the library. Okay. His touch startled her, and Onodera looked at him with a blush, but she also quickly calmed down, knowing that it was meaningless to fight Aino. She wanted to kiss him subconsciously on the cheek, but she realized that everyone was staring at her, so she quickly ran away in shyness after she got her bag. I will see you later. Yet. Ishigami only nodded and prepared to go to the library, ignoring the dumbfounded gaze of others. Yet, this was normal since, in just a day, suddenly, his relationship with Onodera became so close. While they had shown off their ambiguous relationship before, no one thought they would be dating so soon, so when they saw how they were so sticky to each other, they felt slightly at a loss, and at the same time, they wondered whether there was something special about Ishigami that made Onodera be crazily in love with him. The boys were confused, but the girls were curious. You are really dating, Onodera-san? Aino asked with a complicated gaze. Ishigami thought that Aino wouldn't say anything, but when he stood up, this girl asked him this question. Yes. Why? Even if you asked me, why? He wondered why people asked him why, even though it wasn't normal for him to accept Onodera's confession as a guy. Onodera wasn't ugly, she was rather smart, and she often treated him, so why should he reject her? Well, last part aside, a man was a simple being, as long as a cute girl loved them, why should they be unhappy? You are so irresponsible. What kind of answer was that? Aino showed her teeth, staring at him hatefully. Ishigami might be taller than her, but she didn't back down and kept staring at him. Ishigami fell in silence for a while and said, sorry. What did his apology mean? Was it because of his previous answer? Or was it because he disappointed her as he dated Onodera? So, do you want him to break up with Onodera? Aino felt her breath become disorderly, and her head was spinning. Are you okay? Still, his voice woke her up, but she didn't dare look at him, as she couldn't help but think about their exchange from middle school to now. She thought that after all of that, everything would return to how it used to be, but unexpectedly, she didn't expect him to have a girlfriend, and that girlfriend was their classmate. Watching how they were so close and even holding each other's hands like a lover, Aino felt like her chest was so stuffy that it hurt. She bit her thin, pink lips and clenched her small fists. They had already held each other's hands, so how long would it be for them to kiss each other's lips? When Aino thought so, her heart felt even more in pain, thinking Onodera would be holding Ishigami doing something lewdly in a place she didn't know. I am fine. His voice woke her up, but then she asked, say, Ishigami, can I ask you something? What's wrong? Who made the confession? Confession. Ishigami felt that it was better to say it was him, but watching Aino's eyes that kept staring at him stubbornly, he felt helpless and didn't lie. Don't tell anyone, okay? I won't. Do you think I am the type of person who can't keep my mouth? Well, that's true. Aino might have been high-strung and even annoyed others, but Ishigami knew well that she could be trusted. It was her. I see. Somehow, Aino's expression was quite better after she heard it, then she looked at him again and asked, by the way, our bet is still continuing, right? This morning, bet. Did you forget? Aino's face was blue once again. Of course not. I remember it well. Ishigami nodded. Good. Aino nodded in satisfaction. Ishigami felt weird, but then he said quietly, but did you remember that you can't ask me a perverted request? Baka, idiot. Aino's face flushed red, and she quickly refuted him, of course, I know. Was it only him that felt that she felt quite disappointed? Ishigami thought that it was only his illusion. Are you going to the library? Yup. Aino thought for a while and said, I can't teach you now, but if you want, I can teach you later. You will teach me. Why not? Aino looked at him calmly and asked, do you think I am so petty that I won't teach you? You are not, but later. Yet. Aino nodded. Do you want to come to my house? What did this girl plan to do? Still, watching her cute face that slowly reddened like a ripened tomato, he thought this girl always stepped forward, without thinking that she often messed around due to that nature. Aino, did you forget that you still have a job on the Public Morals Committee? Ah, right. Ishigami turned and saw Kobachi, who silently approached them. Still, while Aino knew that she had something to do in the Public Morals Committee, she hesitantly looked at Ishigami. Go, you can go to the library when you finish later. Okay, wait for me there. Aino didn't hesitate and quickly left, hoping to finish her job as soon as possible. Ishigami was also about to go to the library, but... You are going to the library, Ishigami? Yes. Let's go together. Ishigami turned and stared at Kobachi, who said those words calmly. Dash. To be honest, the heroines in the Kaguya world are so troublesome to be taken down as a harem member, especially with how powerful their families are. Or rather, they are too proud to be chosen as the side one instead of the only one. Chika is rather confusing, but a girl is confusing, so it will be hard for you to understand them. Still, the origin of the previous chapter is like this. When I wrote the previous chapter, I pictured Chika's confession as a desperate attempt to fix her relationship with Ishigami. When she heard that he had a girlfriend, she lost her calm, lashed him out, and mocked him by saying that he was such a simple guy who fell for anyone who was gentle and kind to him, so to fix her mistakes, she blurted out her feelings, telling him truthfully why she couldn't remain calm when she heard he got a girlfriend. If I made an example, it was like those guys who knew that the girls they had fallen with suddenly got a boyfriend and suddenly blurted out their feelings, even if it was a little late. While they said that they didn't hope for anything, inwardly, they hoped something would happen between them. By the way, I have written so much. Please ask me if you don't understand again. Someone asked the same question on Patreon, so this is the copy. More importantly, Chika is always moved by an impulse, and she even wishes to be kissed forcefully in the story, so well, don't be surprised by her, okay? Also, by the way, have you watched or read Moriarty the Patriot? Is it a good story? Comment. 34 comment. Vote. Chapter 39, Ugly Desire. Ishigami didn't refuse Kobachi and waited so they could go to the library together, but as he waited for her, watching her, putting her books and other things in her bag, he couldn't help but ask, does the librarian have to be in the library every day, Ozaragi-san? As long as he remembered, this girl had been in the library every day. He had been busy studying, reading books, and raising his reading proficiency skills, which are almost close to level 3, but what about Kobachi? While she was part of the librarian, did she have to be in the library all the time? What about the other members? Have they slackened their jobs and left everything to her? While Kobachi wasn't being bullied, Ishigami knew that she was often isolated due to her beauty. In this school, when everyone was above many due to their parents' background, they definitely felt uncomfortable with her beauty and usually often ignored her. To be honest, according to his observation, except for Aino, Kobachi didn't have any female friends. Still, if someone bullied her, then he would help her, and at the same time, a certain possibility was born in his heart, but he shook his head and waited for her answer. As she heard his question, Kobachi stopped for a moment and then continued to clean up her table. No, I just like to read books, so I often stay even if I am not in charge of being a librarian that day. While she said so, she felt bitter inwardly, as it was so hard for her to act and suppress everything, but fortunately, her experience as a kid actress helped her to solve her situation. More importantly, she had used to keep everything so nothing should be found out, yet when she turned, she saw Ishigami's expression, which was so strange that it made her skip, thinking that her secret was known. What is it? No, it's just even if you like a book, your grade isn't much different from mine. Unlike Aino, who was the best student in the entire grade, or even Onodera, who was within the top 50, Kobachi's grade was about the same as his, even if she often read books. Bastard! Kobachi blushed and lightly hit him since she knew that she had been teased, and at the same time, she knew that it was also a chance for her. Then, can I study with you too? Sure. Ishigami nodded. Though, I can't help you much since my rank is much lower than yours. It's fine. My grade is much better than yours. I can teach you. Is that a return from before? Kobachi smiled and said, come on. Let's go to the library. Okay. As the two walked, Ishigami initiated the conversation by asking for her favorite books. Oh, if you want to start reading, you should start to read. As he listened, he didn't say much and just added from time to time. As expected, when one talked about the thing they loved the most and the opposite listened carefully to what they loved, that person would be happy. It was like when you met an otaku friend, and you two had similar tastes in anime, by then, it would be a blast. Instead of talking, listening was the key, so this was what he did, and at the same time, he couldn't help but think about the 2 rewards he gained from Kaguya and Onodera. The rewards he got from the system were impressive. Even if he had to work hard to increase his proficiency, he knew that as long as he worked hard, he could leave his name on history. So, what kind of reward would he gain if he could make Kobachi fall in love with him? While his thoughts were morally questioned, if he wanted to improve further, he had to be bold and take the danger to embrace the danger. The higher the risk, the higher the return. People often said that, and he believed it. Still, being patient was the key, and instead of being in a hurry, he should do it carefully. Be a coward when people tell you to move, and be bold when people start to become cowardly. With that thought, his gaze couldn't help but sneak at her side profile, seeing her red eyes, which were as beautiful as rubies, her slender body comparable to a model's, and her chest slightly bulging. They might not be the biggest, yet they were charming on their own. At the same time, when he thought about how her slender yet plump thighs were wrapped in black thighs, it made him slightly dizzy. Then, I will go and study first. Good luck with your librarian duty. So when they arrived at the library, Ishigami decided to part away from Kobachi as soon as possible since he was afraid his unpleasant gaze would be noticed, considering how women were particularly sensitive to such a gaze, but... Wait. What's wrong, Ozaragi-san? Kobachi felt his gaze on her, and while she was nervous, she said, help me for a bit. Help you? Yes. Kobachi made up her mind as she looked at him and pointed at the stack of books on the table. Help me to return those books to the correct shelves. Well, sure. Ishigami saw no harm in helping her, and this also helped him distract his mind from lewd things. Having nothing to do would make him think something weird all the time, and he felt it was unhealthy. Studying was nice, especially when he could see an improvement in himself, but sometimes, having a change of pace might be nice, he thought. Nevertheless, the job of a librarian was quite simple, helping those who needed to borrow a book, helping to search for a book, making a record, and also returning the borrowed books to the correct shelves. It might seem troublesome, but as the library wasn't a popular spot in the school, it wasn't a busy duty, and they could spend their leisure time reading. If he wasn't a student council member, he thought it might be good to become a librarian since it was a good thing to enjoy books. Still, the privilege that came from the student council was nice, as he was in charge of the money of the clubs and various other things related to the students, and this experience helped him to become a corrupt bureaucrat. Jokes aside, he felt that it was possible, but he would do it in a subtle way, such as going on a training camp at the luxurious resort. Ishigami felt this should be possible, but when he thought of Shirogana's kind nature, he knew it was impossible. In this school, where everyone was cruel and didn't think a human life was similar to others, he knew that Shirogane, a gentle and kind young man, was a rare breed. Is it okay for you to push all of that by yourselves, Ishigami? Kobachi asked as she looked at Ishigami, who pushed the cart that was stacked with many books. It's fine. Leave all the physical work to me. You have become reliable now. I have been, but you just notice it now. No, I have known this part of you from before. What? Ishigami looked at Kobachi as he heard her murmuring something. No, nothing. Let's finish this as soon as possible. Okay. The job of the librarian might be plain, but it helped him to distract himself with many things as he needed to search for the correct shelves to return the borrowed books. Squatting down, he returned the books one by one as he read their titles. It felt weird that there were so many books with unique titles. Biography of Sada Abe. Ishigami's expression became weird, wondering why a biography of a female killer who killed her lover and cut her lover's penis was there, and he wondered who had kept and borrowed it. Still, he thought about borrowing it later since it seemed quite interesting as he wished to know the motive of this woman to kill her lover. However, there was Kobachi, so he decided to remember the shelf and get it later. Ishigami. Why did you date Onodera? This question again. Ishigami felt helpless, but as he had answered this question so many times before, he knew what to answer. Only the development was different from what he imagined. Let me guess, you just want a girlfriend that helps you with your sexual needs, right? Ishigami was stunned, and all of a sudden, he could feel a warm breath in his ear, which made him uncomfortable. It made his body giddy and slightly tickled, and his ear was a bit sensitive. More importantly, as a young man filled with energy and vitality without any place to vent, he felt, he might do something unforgivable. Still, Kobachi's question was too rude, and he thought of scolding her since even if they had quite an okay relationship, wasn't she so rude? Yet, when he turned, suddenly, his lips were taken. His lips were pressed against her small and soft lips. His eyes widened, and he didn't expect to be kissed so suddenly. Hey? Why was this happening? Why was he being sexually assaulted so suddenly? As he was confused by Kobachi's sudden kiss, Kobachi pulled her head slightly, looking at his confusion amusedly. How cute! Snap! Widening her eyes, Kobachi had never thought that Ishigami would kiss her back. Dash! I want to say something here so it won't be bland. There you go. Chapter 40, Hidden Crush. Fun. Kobachi had never thought that it could be like this with someone. What they talked about was just a mundane thing, her hobby, and many others, yet as she spent it with him, she felt it was nice. All of her unpleasantness disappeared, it was like an after the rain with a pleasant scent from the earth. She loved the feeling when she stood by his side, yet as they arrived at the library, she knew that they had to part. By then, she realized that everything was just an illusion. Who was so close, so far away from him. They might be standing side by side, yet, she knew he was at a place that was impossible to arrive. While she didn't like it, she knew that she didn't have a right to stop him, especially with their current relationship. Their closeness, which started at her whim to open the library when it was about to close, made their relationship became closer than she imagined. While she had thrown away her feelings and thought it was impossible for them to be together, sometimes, she couldn't help but think about the possibility between them. The possibility that she had thrown away might bloom. What if? What if? What if? Many what ifs kept popping out of her head, and in the end, before he walked away, she decided to be bold, asking him to help her. As expected, she knew that with his kindness, he wouldn't reject her, and she used this trait of him so she could stay with him for a little longer. Should I place it here, Ozaragi-san? Yes, that's the place. Unlike her, who was ugly and had a hideous heart, Ishigami should be with someone who was kind and gentle, someone who could make him happy like Tsubame. Yes, Tsubame Koyasu. When she saw how close Ishigami and Tsubame were, she thought that he could finally be happy. Yes, Tsubame was the one, be with her, Ishigami, Kobachi thought. Moreover, she also knew that Ishigami had helped Tsubame, so she knew that his chance wasn't zero, especially when she saw how close they were. Yet, why Onodera? Why her? If it was Aino, Kobachi might not have reacted this strongly, but Onodera was different. Unlike her and Aino, who still believed that Ishigami must have been hiding something and never said anything mean to him, supporting him silently as usual, Onodera was different. Onodera had mocked and been mean to Ishigami like any other girl in the first grade after that incident. She purposely said mean things to him and even gloated at his misfortune, feeling superior by his inferiority. Could such a girl make him happy? No way. Yet, Kobachi knew that this was someone that Ishigami had chosen, and while she hated it, she knew that Onodera was the first girl who approached him at his lowest point. Unlike now, when he had so many friends, was popular, and was even often talked to by a group of girls, which was a complete change from his previous treatment, Onodera approached him. Unlike her Aino, Onodera talked to him, yet Kobachi felt it was also because Onodera sat by his side. If the one who sat by his side wasn't Onodera, then would she be with Ishigami? If I am the one. If she was the one who sat by his side, then, would she be the one who was his girlfriend? Why her? Why her? Why her? Such a thought crossed her mind, yet she knew that it was too late, Ishigami had had a girlfriend. While there was a possibility of the two parting, she wasn't sure how long it would take and if there was even a chance for them to be together, especially with how close his relationship with some girls was. Longing, affection, pain, jealousy, and everything weaved together, tightly tied within her heart so tight before they snapped, broken into several pieces that made her unable to think properly, and she blurted out cruel words to him before kissing his lips subconsciously. Watching his shocked expression, she had this strange sense of pleasure and happiness as she was able to do something that even her best friend and his girlfriend were impossible to do. While part of her wanted to stick out her tongue to lick his lips, she felt a bit shy and made a sudden retreat. Still, this was the end. Nothing would happen between them anymore. By this point, the two of them would become nothing but distant classmates who wouldn't talk to each other. She had made a cross, clearly cutting their relationship, yet this was good since this way, she could move on from this one-side feeling. What was left was the question why. From his mouth when their lips parted, and by then, she would answer him with an ambiguous answer, and the two would have an awkward relationship that slowly dissipated like froth on the ocean, becoming strangers. Yet, the question why didn't come out from his lips. Instead, her eyes widened, watching him take her lips, clearly kissing her and even lightly licking her sweet lips. Don't provoke me, okay? Fortunately, Ishigami didn't move further and quickly calmed himself before he pulled away, afraid that he might really do something unforgivable, especially with his body that was filled with vitality and vigor. At that moment, his body was like a balloon that kept being poured with water, and it grew bigger and bigger before it exploded. Fortunately, his balloon was long and large, so it could bear the expansion, but it didn't change the fact that he was still troubled. While the dream could somehow help him, he knew that this wasn't the perfect solution. Sooner or later, he would be ruined by this healthy body. Still, fortunately, Onodera had become his girlfriend, and he was working hard to make her open up, but then, another girl suddenly attacked him, using her fangs against him when he was defenseless. While he could counterattack and quickly defend himself, he knew that this wasn't good since he was afraid the fantasy in his mind might become a reality. The fantasy that might ruin everything, the nightmare that might even bring disaster to his everyday life. Ishigami had tried to hold it, yet he knew it was impossible since Kobachi kissed him once again, pushing him onto the ground, and clung to him tightly like an anaconda that was about to kill its prey. Her kiss was no longer the innocence where two people only pressed each other's lips, but a bold one where she stuck her tongue, trying to pry open his lips aggressively. Still, Ishigami didn't open his lips, stared at this girl helplessly, and felt a little angry, so he knew he needed to teach her that she shouldn't kiss someone so carelessly. If that's your game. With his lips opened, Onodera put her tongue without hesitation, licking his gums, tongue and mouth obsessively became nothing but a slut, who was obsessed with the kiss she shared with the boyfriend of her classmate. The crush of her best friend. And my hidden crush. Her movement was jerky, amateur, and lacking experience, so the moment Ishigami made a move, she was soon completely overturned and conquered before letting herself fall like a kite whose string was broken. In this quiet library, the two had their secret rendezvous.
Thanks for listening.